Hello everyone, I know you are going to use this video for falling asleep, so before that, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know where you are from. Also, what time is it? No one ever meant to find what was buried beneath Hollow Creek, but something had been listening, waiting, and now that it was heard, it wanted to be seen. It started with a sound. A low, gurgling thump that pulsed through the floorboards of the Dawson house at 20:47 a.m. sharp. Not a knock, not a creak. This was something wet, something that didn't care if you were asleep, something that belonged underwater but wasn't anymore. The town of Elmbrook had always been quiet, the kind of place where church bells meant more than sirens, and the diner closed at 7 because folks should be home by dark. But something had changed. In the past week, 4 people had vanished. Not run away. Vanished. Gone like breath in winter. No notes. No struggle. No answers. Just the same oily puddle left behind on hardwood floors or bathroom tiles. Always in a place where there shouldn't be water. Detective Ronan Price had seen enough by now to know what wasn't normal. And this wasn't normal. The puddles didn't test positive for any known fluid. Not blood, not oil, not even water. Just something else. Something with a smell like old iron and burnt sugar. On the night of May 13th, Price sat in his rusted cruiser outside the Dawson residence, eyes pinned to the glow of the porch light like it might flicker out and take the whole house with it. Inside was a child, Max Dawson, 9 years old. Mute since the night his father disappeared 3 days ago. Max hadn't spoken, eaten, or slept. He just drew. Circles, spirals, a mouth too wide for a face, always in black crayon. Even when handed a rainbow pack. Mrs. Dawson refused to talk about the night her husband vanished. Said it was God's will. Said he walked into the creek behind their house and wasn't supposed to come back. But she kept scrubbing the floors like she was trying to erase something no one else could see. That night, the rain started at 11:04 p.m., exactly as it had the previous 3 nights. The same slow, heavy drops that hit like taps from a child's finger. Price noted it in his logbook. Same hour, same pressure, same whispering sound between the gusts of wind. If he listened close, it sounded like the word, come. At 24:07 a.m., Max screamed for the first time in 3 days. Price burst through the front door without waiting for permission. Upstairs, the boy's room was dark except for the dull flicker of the old fish tank in the corner. All the fish were dead, floating belly up, their eyes missing. Max was curled on the bed, fists pressed against his ears, rocking back and forth and mumbling something over and over. Price leaned in. They live in the drain, they live in the drain, they live in the drain. Then came the sound again. From the bathroom, a splash. A wet, deliberate splash. Price drew his weapon and moved down the hall, each step heavier than the last. The air smelled wrong, like pond water and rotting flowers. He nudged the bathroom door open with his boot. Nothing, just the bathtub, empty. Except it wasn't. There was a shadow in the tub, not of something inside, but something beneath, moving like a thing trying to rise but unsure of how to climb through porcelain. He didn't blink, he couldn't. And then the drain gurgled. Once, twice. Then a sharp pop, like suction breaking. From the tub came a hand. It was small, wet, pale blue. And it gripped the edge like it had always known how. Price fired. The bullet hit porcelain, shattered tile. The hand slipped back, not out of fear, but with purpose, like it had gotten what it came for and was retreating. When the other officers arrived, there was no hand, no water, just Price, staring at the tub like it might speak. Max stopped speaking again that night. 3 days later, a plumber named Jared McCoy was called to the McKinney house on Willow Avenue. Complaint: bathtub won't drain, strange smells. Jared never came out. They found his tools neatly laid beside the tub. His boots, too. His flashlight still on, shining down the open drain. The water was clean, still. And yet, when they lowered a camera into the pipes, something blinked back. A human eye, but not his. The footage was lost before analysis. Elmbrook didn't talk about it after that. Not in public. But some homes started pouring concrete into their bathtubs. Others simply moved away, leaving behind houses that smelled of mildew and dreams turned sour. But the Dawson house stayed. Max kept drawing, and at 2004 7 a.m. every night, something under the house would thump. Detective Price was changed. His hands shook when he held a coffee cup. He stopped shaving. Stopped talking unless it was necessary. People whispered about what he saw, but no one asked him directly. Until Father Monroe came to visit, a priest with old eyes and older sins. "I've heard of things like this," Monroe said, sliding a thin black book across the table. Not ghosts, not demons either. Something older, something wet. Price didn't want to believe it, but he flipped through the book anyway, page after page of folklore and sketches. All of them showed the same thing: circles, spirals, a wide mouth. One page had a phrase scrawled in Latin beneath a hand-drawn tubby. "Aperi portas aquarum." Open the water's gate. Price went pale. That was what Max had drawn on the wall in crayon that morning. 2 weeks later, a local teenager dared his friends to swim in Hollow Creek at midnight. Said the water was only haunted if you believed it. Said the world didn't work like ghost stories. He never made it out. They found his body 10 miles downstream, except it wasn't drowned. It was dry, completely dry, mouth open, eyes gone, and his fingertips were shriveled, like he'd been in the water too long. Or maybe something had sucked the water out of him. The final straw came when Price found a tunnel beneath the Dawson house. It hadn't been there before. Couldn't have been. But now it stretched down into darkness, dug through rock and bone like a burrowing animal had made a home where it didn't belong. The walls were wet, not dripping, sweating. He went down alone. He didn't take a flashlight, only a flare. He walked for 13 minutes, and in that time he heard breathing, not his, not human. He lit the flare and saw the spiral again, not on a wall, on a face, or what used to be one. Then he ran. He didn't stop running until he hit daylight. And even then, the sound of dripping followed him like a second shadow. They tried to seal the tunnel. Concrete. Steel. Prayers. It didn't work. Every night, 2:47 a.m., the thump, the drain, and Max, who never grew past 9 years old. The town of Elmbrook is still there, technically, but Hollow Creek has risen. And the rain. It always starts at 11:04. There's something wrong with the bridge over Hollow Creek. It looks ordinary. Splintered railings, rusted bolts, the kind of place teens dare each other to cross at night. But those who count the steps as they walk over never finish with the same number twice. Some say 12. Some say 14. No one says 13. No one except Benjamin Coates. Ben was the night janitor at Elmbrook High. A quiet man, ex-Marine, used to cleaning up more than just floors. He didn't believe in curses. Didn't believe in anything, really, until the night he walked home across the bridge and found himself counting steps out loud. 1, 2, 3. The wind was calm. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. 4, 5, 6. He paused. Something crunched behind him. A soft, wet footfall. He turned. Empty road. 7, 8. The wood beneath him groaned. 9. He stopped again. A shadow stood at the edge of the trees. Not hiding. Not moving. Just watching. Its shape wasn't quite right. Too long in some places. Missing things in others. 10. Ben walked faster. The hair on his neck stood up like static. 11. The shadow stepped onto the bridge. No sound. No wait. 12. Ben didn't say 13. He ran. But the next morning, his boots were found at the creek's edge. Just the boots. Laces tied. His body was recovered a week later. Mouth open. Eyes gone. The soles of his feet were smooth, as if he'd been walking underwater for years. When news of Ben's death spread, folks in Elmbrook started locking their drains. Literally. Metal grates bolted over them, bleach poured every night, even bath plugs kept in all day. And still, the thumps came, always at 2:47. Father Munro didn't sleep anymore. He stayed in the rectory, cross in one hand, book in the other, waiting for the whispers to begin. They always did. Right after the rain, he wrote letters. To the Vatican, to folklore experts, to occult specialists. Most went unanswered. One letter came back, no return address. Just one word scribbled in shaky handwriting, hydrolith. He didn't know what it meant. But the next day he found a stone in the church's holy water basin, black, smooth. Still wet, though it hadn't rained. He placed it in a locked box. By morning, the box was gone, and so was the holy water, every drop. Meanwhile, Max Dawson started drawing again, not on paper this time, on walls, on mirrors, on windows if they fogged, the same spiral, over and over. One day, he spoke. 13 steps. Mrs. Dawson fainted on the spot. When she woke, her mouth was bleeding. She'd bitten off the tip of her tongue. Detective Price sat in his cruiser outside Hollow Creek every night now, staring at the water, listening. He knew what was coming, but he couldn't stop it. He kept hearing Ben's voice in his dreams. I said 12, but I walked 13. Then the dream always ended the same way. A hand rising from the drain, fingers too long, skin like eel flesh, and that sound, that drip, it never echoed, it listened. On June 1st, 4 teenagers vanished from the school gymnasium. Security cameras caught their last movements. They were laughing, pushing each other, mocking the drawings of Max Dawson. One boy kicked over a janitor's mop bucket. Water spread. Then the lights flickered. The camera buzzed with static. And when the picture cleared, the gym was empty. No exit. No screams. Just the echo of water sliding down a drain. The principal, Mr. Harrow, went home and shot himself. The note he left behind simply read, "Don't mop the floors." Price finally broke into the town records. He needed answers. Real ones. In a dusty archive under Town Hall, he found a ledger dated 1872. Founding of Elmbrook, it read. But something was wrong. The town wasn't named Elmbrook until 1904. Before that, it was called Rill Hollow, and before that, nothing, just the word Acklins. No origin, no translation, just a symbol scrawled beside it. A circle, inside it a spiral, inside that, an eye. There were reports back then too. Water that flowed uphill, children who vanished in wells, a priest who drowned in a basin too small for his body. All logged as act of God, except one. A woman named Thalia Griggs, described as possessed by the water mouth, was burned alive in the town square. Her last words were carved into the floorboards of the church by her fingernails. It lives in what we wash. That night, Price sat in the Dawson house again. Max was asleep. Or pretending. The mother was gone. Taken maybe. No signs of break-in. Just her nightgown in the sink soaked through, though all the taps were dry. At 20:47, Price heard it again. The thump. He didn't move. Then came the voice, from the drain in the kitchen sink. Soft, chilled-like. "Detective." He stood up slowly. "Detective, I'm so thirsty." He looked. The drain was still. No water. No motion. "Please, just one sip, open the tap." He backed away. The voice got louder, angrier. "Let me drink, detective. Let me in." He poured salt down the drain and heard a scream. Not loud. Not sharp. More like steam escaping a kettle. And the smell, like scorched fish and grave dirt. By morning, the kitchen was dry again, except for the ceiling, where water stains had bloomed in the shape of a hand. The town tried to evacuate that week. A gas line excuse. FEMA warning. But anyone who tried to leave found their cars wouldn't start. GPS failed. Roads looped. And every hotel within 50 miles was full. Booked by no one. The rain didn't stop that week. And every night, the water level in Hollow Creek rose another inch. Max Dawson disappeared the next Friday. He wasn't taken. Not the way others were. He walked. Through the rain, down the steps, onto the bridge, counting. 1, 2, 3. At 12, he paused, then turned, smiled, and stepped off the side. Straight down, not into the water, into the drain. They never found his body. But in his room, one final drawing sat on the desk. Not a spiral, not a mouth, a doorway, open, with 13 steps leading down into black. Elmbrook didn't die all at once. It rotted, piece by piece. First the phones, then the lights, then the people. Some fled. Most didn't get far. They were found in bathtubs, in basins, in ditches, always dry, always grinning, and still it thumps at 20:47, and the rain starts at 11:04, and somewhere, deep beneath the bridge, 13 steps lead down into the water, where it waits, watching, listening, smiling. There are two kinds of missing people in Elmbrook, the ones who were never found, and the ones who came back, different. Eleanor Birch was the first to return. She vanished 1 week after the Hollow Creek flood swallowed her father's car whole. They'd found the wreckage, but not her. For days, volunteers searched the banks, dragging hooks through sludge and weeds. The creek was rising then, greedy thick like it had a pulse of its own. Then one morning, there she was, standing in her backyard, soaked and barefoot, hands hanging limp at her sides. Eleanor was 8. Her mother screamed and rushed to hug her, but Eleanor didn't move, didn't blink. Her skin was cold. Her fingernails were soft, as if she'd been soaking in water for days. The only thing she said that day was, "It has teeth." Doctors called it trauma, shock, but they couldn't explain how a child missing for 6 days, with no food or shelter, had perfect vital signs. No fever, no infection, no bruising, except one thing. Her pupils were slightly off, not round, not fully, almost oval, and they didn't shrink when hit with light. Eleanor stopped speaking 2 days later. Then she started drawing, just like Max. Only she didn't draw spirals or mouths. She drew pipes, miles of them, twisting under the town like veins. Some small, some wide enough to walk through, some that pulsed. She taped the drawings to her walls, her windows, the ceiling above her bed. Then she started pulling her hair out, strand by strand, no emotion, no sound, just quiet obedience, like she was preparing. Father Monroe called it reversal, not possession, not haunting, but something closer to an exchange. He showed Price a journal from 1891, handwritten by a minister in Rill Hollow. It described a boy named Caleb who fell into the well behind the church and came back days later. But the boy didn't sleep, didn't eat, and his eyes never stopped dripping. They sealed the well after that, then burned the church to the ground. Eleanor's mother went missing next, vanished from her own kitchen. The water was still running, and the sink smelled like old breath. Eleanor never reacted, just sat at the table, feet dangling, humming a song no one could place, over and over. 4 notes, then silence, then again. 4 notes, and silence. 3 days later, a sewer crew working under East Grove heard the song. They didn't know the Birch case, didn't know the town's history. They were just workers doing a job, until their radio started picking it up. 4 notes, repeating, then static. Then the voice, "We're full now." When the crew surfaced, one man was missing. They found his heart inside a pipe too narrow for a man to crawl through. It was still warm. Price didn't sleep anymore. He set up cameras in the Dawson house, monitored the drains, the walls, the ceilings, and every night, at exactly 2:47 a.m., the footage glitched. Not static, not darkness, just ripples like water moving over glass. And then, a frame too fast for the eye. When he slowed it down, he saw Max, but older, smiling, standing in the bathtub, naked and pale. One eye normal, the other black as oil. Then came the sinkhole. It opened on Hollow Street, just blocks from the old bridge, 20 feet wide, 50 feet deep. And at the bottom, not soil, not roots, just stairs. Slick, gray steps winding into the dark. Exactly 13 of them. The police sealed it off. But the next morning, the tape was gone. And so was the officer guarding it. Eleanor Birch died 1 week later. No injuries, no warning. She was found in bed, dry as dust, lips curled into a quiet smile. Clutched in her hand was a folded drawing. A man in a suit, holding an umbrella, standing beside a drain. Only the umbrella wasn't keeping rain out. It was keeping something in. Father Monroe vanished the day after Eleanor's funeral. No sign of struggle. Just a trail of wet footprints leading to the altar, and a whisper echoing from the confessional booth. He stepped where we drown. The church was locked that night, boarded up the next morning. The bishop refused to send another priest. By then, the sky over Elmbrook had changed. The sun still rose, but the light felt wrong, thinner, and the shadows stayed wet long after the rain stopped. People said the drains were breathing, that if you stood too long in the bathroom at night, you'd hear someone whisper your name. Not shout, not scream, just soft, like they were remembering you. Price started going door to door, begging people to leave. Don't shower, don't bathe, don't touch the sinks. But they laughed, called him the drain cop, until Mrs. Langston's boy disappeared in the tub during bath time. One blink, he was there. Next blink, ripples. And then the drain gurgled. There's a hospital in Elmbrook. Or there was. On July 3rd, every patient vanished. No signs of escape, no violence. Just rows of empty beds. And the sound of running water from the fire sprinklers. No one turned them on. Price sat in the morgue that night, looking at the bodies from the birch case. All dry, all smiling. He opened Eleanor's file one last time. Inside, a note he didn't remember writing. Not in his handwriting. Not in any handwriting. Just sharp, jagged letters. What drowns also drinks. There's a theory that some places remember. That land itself can hold memories. But Elmbrook doesn't just remember, it relives. And it brings things back with it. Not ghosts, not people. Something older. Something thirsty. The last thing Price did before he disappeared was call a number scribbled on the back of Father Monroe's Bible. An archivist named Helena Kerr. She listened to his whole story in silence, then said, "You opened the steps." "What steps?" Price asked. "The 13. Then she hung up. That night, Price took a camera down the Dawson Tunnel one last time. He left the footage on a flash drive taped under his desk at the station. The video ends at minute 13, with a shot of something moving behind the stone, a shape with no bones, just lips, and a spiral smile. And still, the drains wait, the rain falls, the thump comes, and Elmbrook keeps counting, but never out loud, because no one wants to say 13 before he disappeared. Jared McCoy kept a notebook. It was mostly schedules and pipe diagrams, lines and numbers no one cared about. But wedged between the pages were sketches, things with too many joints, things that had eyes in their palms, things with no mouths until they smiled. Jared didn't show anyone the drawings while he was alive. He just worked longer hours, took extra shifts, stayed under the town longer than any man should. And then he vanished, not while working, but in his sleep. His wife, Laurel, said she woke to find the bed wet, not soaked. Wet, just enough to make you question whether it was sweat or something else. Except Jared wasn't sweating. He was gone. Sheets undisturbed. Pillows still warm. No sign of a break-in. No sound. Just one thing out of place: the bathroom sink was full of black water. Still. Cold. Not rising. Not draining. Just watching. Laurel didn't report him missing until the next evening. Not because she didn't care, but because she couldn't move. Her legs were locked up. She said it felt like something had bitten her nerves. The doctors found nothing. But they didn't check the sink. When Price's replacement, Officer Lena Rowe, visited the McCoy home, she brought Jared's notebook back with her. She flipped through the pages. Pipes, screws, valves. Then, hidden at the very back, a map, crude, smudged, but clear enough. It showed something under Elmbrook, a second town, wet. Rowe followed the map herself, down past the Dawson Tunnel, past the 13 steps, where the stone began to sweat and the air felt like being breathed through. Rowe's body was found 3 days later, not under the town, in a porta potty at the county fair, locked from the inside. dry, mouth open, eyes missing. The notebook disappeared from evidence that same night. Elsewhere in Elmbrook, the storm drains began to hiss. People said they sounded like static at first, then whispers, then names. Your name, even if you didn't live near the drains. Even if you didn't say it aloud. The mayor resigned, cited health issues, but not before he built a wall around the creek with city funds. A concrete blockade, 20 feet high, lined with salt and wire. By the time it was finished, the water had already risen past it. Without rain, no overflow. Just more creek, more ripples, more thump. In the weeks that followed, 5 more residents went missing, all unrelated, all from different sides of town. One from a shower, one from a car wash, one from a laundromat, one from a fountain at the park, one from a child's inflatable pool. Every time, the water was calm before it took them, like it was choosing, like it was asking permission first. And someone always said yes. The town's only water inspector, Greg Holman, lost his mind. Or so they claimed. He walked into town hall naked and soaked, mumbling numbers, 13. 13 down, 13 across. Then he screamed. You left it open. He was committed that afternoon. By morning, his cell was empty. No one had opened the door. But the drain in the shower was wide open, still spinning. The last page of Jared's notebook resurfaced in a thrift store Bible 3 weeks later. No one knows who found it first, but it was passed around fast. A single page, with a drawing, a man kneeling, head tilted back, water pouring from his mouth like a faucet turned on full, and below the picture, a single phrase, "He cleans the pipes with what we leave behind." People say they've seen Jared McCoy, not alive, not ghosted, just wrong, in storm drains, in puddles, in rear view mirrors when it rains, always watching, never blinking. His shirt still bears the city logo, but his name tag is blurred, like water's running over it. Then came the frogs, hundreds, swarming up from toilets, bathtubs, manholes, dead ones, dry and dead, with empty eye sockets, and spiral marks on their backs, like something chewed on them from the inside. Elmbrook closed the schools, stopped mail service, turned off the public fountains, and still the water found its way in, through cracks, through fog, through mirrors, some claim. There's one photo of Jared that remains, taken the week before he vanished. He's standing next to a manhole cover, giving a tired half smile. But in the photo, if you look at the puddle near his feet, you can see something else, a shape, low to the ground, watching him, smiling. It has no face, but its reflection has a mouth, and it's open. They say you can hear him now, working the drains, cleaning, scraping, muttering about pressure gauges and steam valves. Even if your house isn't connected to the sewer, even if your house doesn't have plumbing, just listen. Late at night, after the pipes go still, you'll hear him in the walls, breathing, fixing, waiting for the next one. Elmbrook isn't a town anymore. It's a container, and the pressure's building. Something below is moving, scraping, licking the inside of its cage, waiting for the right size crack, for the right kind of scream, for the one who left the sink running. You'll know it started when the drain doesn't take any more, when the water just sits there, staring back, because Jared's still down there, and he's not fixing the pipes, he's feeding them. Elmbrook Middle School closed its doors on August 12th. It wasn't announced. No press release, no PTA meeting, just a sign taped to the rusted front gate, CLO Sedicio Offload Resc, Dionan NTR. No one believed it, because the school sits on the highest ground in town. It's never flooded, never even puddled. But the janitor, Mr. Simmons, stopped showing up, and the hallways started to stink. Not of rot, not mold. It was a cleaner kind of wrong, like over-chlorinated pool water mixed with old meat. Nina Calloway, a history teacher, was the first to talk. Said she'd heard music in the vents. Music no one was playing. 4 notes. Always 4. Then a pause. Then again. She thought it was a prank until she followed the sound down to the boiler room, The lights flickered, the temperature dropped, and the music changed. From notes to breathing. She passed out before she reached the bottom. They found her hours later, drenched and shivering. But there hadn't been any water in the room. Just condensation, on the walls, on her skin, on her tongue. Nina quit the next day, moved out of town. Her car crashed just outside the city line. A tree, no skid marks. She hadn't braked. The paramedics found her slumped forward, mouth open, face frozen in a look of pure horror. And her lungs, empty, not collapsed, empty. Like someone had sucked the breath out and replaced it with silence. That same week, the school's pipes burst, but only in one room, room 113, a science lab. The janitor's log said the drain kept burping, not clogging, burping. He noted the time, 2:47 a.m. every single night. Then the logs stopped. When the maintenance crew opened the floor to get to the plumbing, they found bones. Not human, not animal, something in between. Smooth, long, slightly curved, like a child's drawing of waves. And at the bottom of the mess, a finger, perfectly preserved, still soft, still damp. But no one had reported any missing persons at the school. At least, not officially. Students had been whispering about the listener. Some made it up as a joke. A ghost who lived in the sinks. Said if you cupped your hands over your ears and dipped your head near the drain, you could hear it. Whispers. Names. Predictions. Then, if you didn't say, "Thank you," something reached up and pulled. The school denied it, but one boy, Jordan Fess, was caught alone in the locker room doing exactly that. He didn't show up to class again. When they opened his locker, it smelled like pond scum, and the inside was damp. The camera footage showed him walking in, but never walking out. The vice principal found a trail of tiny wet footprints leading out of the boy's last class. Barefoot, child-sized, but Jordan always wore boots. Eventually, the school tried to bring in a contractor to reseal the plumbing. He went into the crawl space beneath room 113 and screamed once, only once. They dragged him out blind, not from trauma, literally blind. His eyes were still there, but they were gray, no response to light, no recognition. Just tears, thick, black ones. They burned his cheeks like acid. The school nurse quit the same night. She left behind a post-it note on her desk. "They're not drowning, they're listening." By then, the school was more myth than building. No power, no staff, no students, just silence, except at 2:47, when the bells rang, even though the power was cut, even though no one was there to hear it, even though the clanging sounded less like a bell and more like water hammering through rusted pipes. Someone tried to burn the building. They soaked the gym in kerosene, lit the match, but the fire wouldn't catch. The match burned out in midair, like something sucked the oxygen out before the flame could live. They say you can still hear Reese's laughter, even when the gates are locked, even when the field is flooded, even when the swings creak in rhythm with the thumping beneath the earth. The janitor's closet was opened weeks later. By accident, a contractor knocked down the wrong wall. Inside was a small room, dry, with newspaper clippings on the walls, all about drownings, each one marked in red pen with the words, "Not in water." In the center of the room, a bucket. Full, clear water, still, except for the tiny bubbles that rose like breath. The man who found it went home that night and took every mirror off his walls, every shiny surface. He bathed in dust and salt, and still they found him. Collapsed in the shower, no water running, mouth open, teeth missing, hair soaked in a spiral shape on the floor. There's something under the school, older than Elmbrook, older than pipes, older than prayers. It doesn't want worship, it wants silence. It wants your ears open, so it can whisper its way in. And if you ever hear 4 notes in a pause, cover your ears. Don't ask what it is. Don't follow it. Don't thank it. Just walk. And never count your steps, because you won't like what comes after 12. No one noticed when the mirrors started lying. At first, it was just small things. A blink out of sync, a smudge that wouldn't wipe off, a reflection that looked tired even when you weren't. But then people started seeing things they hadn't done, like scratches on their face that weren't there a second ago, or water dripping down their cheeks in the mirror, even when the sink was dry. The worst ones, said the mirror, smiled first. Diane Puller ran the antique shop on Main Street. She'd lived in Elmbrook her whole life. She always kept the store lit with a single chandelier and an old oil heater in the winter. It smelled like cedar and old perfume. The back room held her collection of mirrors, dozens, tall, wide, warped from age, some framed in gold, some with spider web cracks. She called it her wall of watchers. She liked to joke that they knew more than she did, until they started showing her things, not herself. Not anymore. But the creek. Always the creek. But lower, under it, dark stone walls slick with moss, and hands. Crawling, not swimming. Crawling up the walls, slipping and digging, dragging long fingers up toward a hole of light the size of a teacup drain, and in the center of every mirror was a spiral. Burned in the glass. Turning slowly. Diane smashed the mirrors one by one, but the spiral kept showing up, in puddles on the floor, in the glaze of her teacups, in the reflection of her eyes. When they found her, she'd scratched a message into the counter with her own nails. There's more of us in there than out here. After Diane's death, people started covering their mirrors with cloth. Some used bed sheets. Others painted them black. A few buried them in their yards. But it didn't stop the feeling, that quiet pressure when you're near a reflective surface. That hum, like something just stepped into the room behind you, and the soft sound of breath, not yours, not close, but below, like someone whispering through a pipe. Detective Ronan Price had mirrors removed from every room in his house years ago. But one still hung above his fireplace, sealed behind boards and a nailed cloth. He never looked at it. Not once. But on the night the town's power failed, and his generator refused to start, and the water in his toilet began to swirl counterclockwise, the cloth covering the mirror fell. No wind, no movement. Just the cloth, drifting down like a veil lifted at a funeral, and behind the boards the mirror was clear. No dust, no cracks. Just Ronan's reflection. Except his eyes were black, and the reflection raised its hand first. He shot the mirror. The glass didn't shatter. It rippled, then smiled. There's a story in Elmbrook now. They say if you stare into any mirror long enough, you'll start to see the spiral behind your pupils. And once you see it, it sees you back. Not all at once. Not loud, but in small ways. Water that won't stay in the glass. Hair floating in a still sink. A whisper from a turned-off faucet. The drain turning even though it's dry. Children began drawing faces with no eyes. Just wide open mouths in the shape of drains. Some of them hummed 4 notes in a row. Others rocked in place, clutching hand mirrors they refused to let go. When asked what they saw, they all gave the same answer, a smile with fingers. The high school covered every bathroom mirror with wood planks. But they missed one, and a student named Ashley Torrance didn't show up for 5th period. They found her backpack in the hallway. Inside it, a broken phone. The last photo on it was a selfie, taken in the mirror, but it wasn't Ashley in the photo. Not really. Her body was there. Her face was not. Just a spiral of teeth, like someone had carved her head into a drain. Ashley's body was never found. But at 2:47 the next morning, her reflection appeared in the mirror again, smiling, crying, singing 4 notes, then gone. People began to avoid mirrors entirely, shaving by touch, brushing teeth in the dark, anything to avoid catching a glimpse. But the reflections didn't need glass anymore. They moved to windows, car doors, rain, puddles, polished spoons, even the sheen of someone's eyes. Father Monroe's journal, now in Price's hands, said this: reflections are doors for what we try not to remember. The mouth opens in the mirror first, because that's where we see ourselves. and it wants us to see what else looks back. The strangest thing, none of the mirrors were wet. Not the real ones, only the reflected ones. Like the water was never in this world. Just brushing against it, waiting for one of us to step too close, or blink at the wrong time, or listen too carefully when brushing our teeth at night. There's a family that fled Elmbrook last month. Said their baby wouldn't stop crying at the hallway mirror. Said they removed it, burned it, but the baby cried harder, until they showed it another mirror, any mirror. Then she smiled, reached out, and said her first word. Not mama, not dada. Just open. Elmbrook is dying. Not loudly, not in flames, but in reflections, in quiet places, in still water and silver edges, and in the faces of people who forget which version of them smiled first. Next time you check your reflection, count your eyes, count your teeth, and ask yourself if you moved first. Because if you didn't, you've already let it in. It began with the sounds in the walls, not mice, not plumbing, just sounds, wet ones, like something heavy sliding through the dark, dragging its weight with each breath. At first, the town blamed rats, then old pipes, then the weather, but none of that explained why the noises spoke. Helen Grover lived on the edge of town, a retired nurse with no patience for ghost stories. She didn't believe the drain rumors, or the spiral drawings, or the smiling kids who'd come home too quiet after walking past Hollow Creek, but she did believe in her dog. Bruno barked every night at the kitchen sink. Every night, same time, 2:47. At first, Helen scolded him, then she joined him, because she started hearing it too, a gurgle, a mumble, a word she couldn't quite catch. Then, one night, it was clear, a voice, from the drain, just one word, thirsty. She called a plumber. Not Jared, he was gone. This was some new guy from out of town. He opened the pipes under the sink, then threw up in her garden, said it smelled wrong, like rotten wet leather. Then he quit. Didn't even ask for payment. Left his tools behind. Helen never touched the sink again. A week later, her bathroom pipe started moaning. Not hissing, moaning. Like someone deep underground calling for help with a mouthful of water. She turned off the main valve. It didn't stop. She called the cops. They heard nothing. But her neighbor did. A child's voice, echoing behind the walls, led us back. That same night, the drywall in her hallway pulsed. Just once. As if it had lungs. Helen moved in with her sister. The house stood empty, but passersby said they could still hear Bruno barking, long after he'd died. By September, the pipes were talking in other houses. Not sentences, just fragments. Breathless things. Whispers that matched the wind. Every time the temperature dropped or the rain started, the voices grew louder and clearer and closer. The town council tried replacing infrastructure. New piping, new water heaters, new valves. Didn't matter. Even dry pipes made noise. One man recorded it, played it back in slow motion. It was a lullaby. 4 notes, same as the kids, same as the drain. The melody of the drowned. A priest tried blessing the sewer grates. Sprinkled holy water. Recited scripture. Nothing changed, except the water boiled when he poured it. And his voice echoed back through the pipes 10 minutes later, word for word. Except the echo laughed at the end. A family from out of town bought a house on Croft Lane. They lasted 4 days. On the 5th, their youngest son said there were people knocking behind the bathtub. Not on the door, behind the tub. They didn't believe him until they pulled it out to remodel and saw the fingernail scratches on the wall behind the tile, all circling the drain. In a spiral, a woman named Lacey filed a noise complaint. She said her faucet kept whispering her name, not loudly, just once a night, soft, sulky, like it missed her. She recorded it, played it back for the landlord. He heard nothing. She pressed play again. Still nothing. But when she checked her voice memos the next day, the file was renamed. Just one word, open. Lacey stopped speaking. Then she stopped blinking. Then she started washing her hands 20 times a day. Not with soap, not with water, with bleach, until the skin flaked off. The pipes weren't malfunctioning, they were breathing. And the people who stayed in Elmbrook long enough, they started breathing with them. Their lungs matched the rhythm. Their mouths hummed the notes. Their dreams became darker, wetter. Some even woke up choking, not on spit, but on silt. Price, before he vanished, wrote one final report, a diagram of the town's plumbing, except it didn't match reality. There were extra lines, extra chambers, a whole other system under the real one. Labeled only with one word in red ink, mouthwork. No one knows what it meant, but the diagram matched Max Dawson's drawings exactly. Lines under homes, under churches, beneath the school, all feeding into one large circle beneath Hollow Creek. And in the center of that circle, a spiral, shaped like a mouth. The pipes aren't broken. They're hungry. They've been drinking in silence, dripping secrets back through rust and bone. And every whisper behind the wall, that's not your house settling. That's it learning your voice. Next time you hear a creak at night, don't speak. Don't ask, hello, because it's listening, and it loves names, especially yours. And if the sink ever speaks, don't answer, because if you do, it won't need the pipes anymore. It'll come through the mirror next. The rain in Elmbrook doesn't fall anymore. It rises. It started during what should have been a dry week. No forecast for storms, no clouds. Just still heat, heavy and slow, like the whole town was holding its breath. Then the puddles began. On rooftops. Not on the streets. Not in the yards. On the rooftops. Neighbors woke to slick shingles, pooling gutters, slanted wood covered in beads of water like sweat on skin. But no rain had come, not from above. Sandra Dell was the first to say it out loud. It's coming up. No one wanted to believe her, but she showed them. A water stain on her ceiling. It was growing, spreading outward in the shape of a fingerprint. She scraped it with her fingernail. The ceiling blood, not paint, not plaster. Just a long, slow drip of black water. And something else. A hair, long, wet, still warm. She moved out that same day. Her house burned down 3 nights later. The fire department found no signs of arson, but the tub in the rubble was full, boiling. Rain fell again a week later, but it didn't land. Not on trees, not on skin. It hung in the air. Tiny droplets, suspended like spider eggs in fog. People walked through it, dry, until they went inside. That's when their walls started to sweat. One man, Tommy Reese, filmed it. Condensation forming under his carpets. Beads slipping down his wallpaper. Windows fogging from the outside in. He posted the video. Then he vanished. The last frame of his footage showed his hallway. The air was clear, but something wet crawled up the stairs behind him. Elmbrook isn't sinking. It's filling, like a tank. The houses aren't flooding with rain. They're pulling it in, soaking it through the wood, through the tile, until the air itself feels thick, like breathing through a lung that doesn't belong to you. The water rises at night, quietly. You can hear it if you press your ear to the floor. A sloshing sound, steady and calm, like someone pacing through shallow pools with bare feet. And then there's the footprints. They've shown up on ceilings now. Not handprints, footprints, bare, webbed, as if something stood upside down, waiting above the bed, dripping softly until the sleeper turned over and gasped. A woman named Rita Shaw said she saw it. She woke at 2:47, the usual time. The air was cold, the window was shut, but water trickled down the light fixture. She looked up, and there it was, a face pressed against the ceiling like it was under glass, not hanging, just watching, eyes wide, no nose, mouth open, tongue pressed to the drywall. It smiled when she screamed. Then it dissolved into vapor and dripped. They locked Rita in a hospital room with no plumbing. She died 3 days later. Dehydration, even though she kept claiming she was soaked. The weather service refuses to answer calls from Elmbrook. Every barometer breaks. Every forecast is blank. But the pressure keeps building. People say it feels like the whole town is underwater, even when it's sunny. Ears pop, noses bleed, and sound moves differently, muffled, delayed, like everything is being filtered. On the night the mayor disappeared, the storm drains backed up, not with leaves, with hair, dark strands, wet, tangled, climbing up through the grates like roots. And from every pipe came one word, whispered in different voices: breathe. The homes closest to Hollow Creek now stand empty, but their windows cry. Water streaks down them, even when it's dry outside. And inside, the furniture is swollen, like it's been drinking. One house was torn open by emergency crews. A girl had gone missing inside. They broke through the walls, found the couch split open, her backpack inside, soaked and warm, but no girl. Only a tunnel under the floorboards, slit, narrow, spiral cut into stone, not dug, drilled. The town hired a geologist. She didn't last a week. Her notes, found in a motel drawer, said the water is older than the soil, older than the bedrock. It doesn't seep, it seeks. Hollow Creek no longer connects to the state map. It loops now. One long circle. Locals say if you try to trace it, you'll end up right where you started, but everything around you will be slightly wrong. Houses backwards. Mailboxes where fences should be. One man swears he saw his dead wife waving from the opposite bank. Smiling. Dripping. The rain comes up from the ground now. You step outside and your shoes are soaked within seconds. Not from stepping in anything. Just from being touched. Like something from below wants to taste how far you've come, and decides if you're worth calling back. The fear in Elmbrook isn't of drowning. It's of breathing after the water's already inside you. Because some say once it's in, it remembers. And if it remembers too much, it climbs through walls, through dreams, through you. So if your floor feels damp when your feet hit the ground, and the ceiling drips in perfect rhythm, and the walls begin to hum that old 4-note song, don't go outside. Don't go upstairs. Don't go to the sink, because the water isn't falling, it's reaching. No one knew when the quiet ones started appearing. They weren't a group. They didn't meet. They didn't organize. They didn't even seem to notice each other. They were just quiet. Too quiet. And they were everywhere. It started with Mrs. Langston's son, Paul, 9 years old, talkative, obnoxious even. Then one morning he came to breakfast and didn't say a word. Not angry, not sick, just different. Sat in his chair, ate his cereal, smiled. Not at anyone, just at his spoon. At school, he stopped raising his hand, stopped drawing during recess, stopped blinking as often. When asked a question, he would hum. 4 notes. Always 4. And if you asked what he was humming, he'd say very softly, "That's how you get in." Mrs. Langston pulled him out of school, took him to a doctor. No physical problems, no mental breakdown. Just one unusual thing on the scans: his inner ears were wet, not infected, wet, like he'd been submerged. Paul wasn't the only one. Soon there were more. Dozens across Elmbrook, adults and children, all sharing one new behavior. They stopped speaking, but they listened, too closely, in grocery stores, on sidewalks, in church. They'd stand still when you talked, staring at your mouth like it was a puzzle, like they were trying to learn the shape of your words. And if you stopped talking, they'd smile, like you'd passed a test. One man, Harold Keene, claimed his wife became one overnight. She lay beside him one evening, reading a book. Then she turned the page and froze asleep, not awake, just still. When he touched her shoulder, she turned to him, eyes wide, smile too wide, and whispered, "There's more room in you than you think." He left the house, never went back. They found his shoes by the edge of Hollow Creek. He was never seen again. The quiet ones don't seem to sleep. Neighbors report seeing them stand at their windows all night, facing inward, watching themselves in the reflection, not moving, not breathing. Some say they fogged the glass from the outside. More of them started showing up at the church, not for prayer, They just sat in the pews, facing backward, staring at the doors. One woman walked up to the altar and opened her mouth. Water dribbled out, then hair, then a single black marble. It rolled down the aisle, and didn't stop until it fell into a floor drain near the back wall. The priest quit that day. He left behind his collar and a note. "They're just waiting for us to hush." Librarians reported stacks of books missing, not taken, just moved, all about plumbing, hydraulics, sound theory, and ancient water rituals from pre-Christian Europe. One book was found shredded into paper, thin spirals, laid out in the bathroom sink. No fingerprints, no water. But the sink wouldn't drain afterward, not even after being replaced. Then came the echo voices. People began hearing familiar things spoken back to them, not just in mirrors, but through walls, pipes, even inside dreams. You'd say, "Hello," in your hallway, and hear your own voice whisper it back in the dead of night, only slower, and wetter, and wrong. One teenage boy was found standing in the middle of his kitchen at 2:47 a.m., mouth open, not breathing, eyes rolled back. From his throat came the voice of his dead grandmother. "Turn the faucet, Thomas, I'm still cold." After that, families started duct taping mouths shut before bed. Their own, their children's, just in case. The quiet ones don't react to tape, or questions, or shouting, but they do respond to silence. If you sit near one and say nothing for exactly 13 minutes, they'll lean in and whisper something. Always different. Always just loud enough to leave a scar on your mind. One man said his quiet one leaned close and whispered, "You were already wet when you were born." He went home and drowned himself in a dry bathtub. Doctors tried to study the behavior, but their machines kept failing. Batteries drained, screens cracked, ink bled off the charts, and in the silence between test signals, the monitors would hum 4 notes, then nothing. Max Dawson's name appeared again, this time on a church window, etched in frost. He hasn't been seen in months. But quiet ones started drawing his spiral now, not with crayons, with their fingernails. On wood, on stone, on skin. Elmbrook doesn't talk much anymore. Phones don't ring. Radios hum static. Even the birds stop chirping. Because the town is listening. And the quiet ones. They're learning how to speak for it. So if someone you love stops speaking, don't ask them why. Don't try to get them back. Just leave. Now. Because once they stop using their voice, they start using it. And the next thing they say won't be meant for you. They come at night. Not with claws. Not with screams. Not with dragging chains or blood-soaked boots. They come quietly. And they look just like you. It started when Martin Talley came home early from work. His shift at the gas station ended at midnight. He walked into his dark kitchen and found himself already sitting at the table. Same shirt, same scar on the lip, same tired eyes. Drinking from his favorite chipped mug. Neither moved. For 23 seconds, they just stared at each other. Then the other Martin spoke. "You left the window open." Martin ran, locked himself in the bathroom. When he looked in the mirror, he wasn't alone. His reflection blinked. But he hadn't. They found him the next morning in the street. Shoeless. Eyes missing. Face torn into a smile he never wore in life. After that, people stopped trusting their own front doors. Neighbors knocked and waited to be invited in, even to their own homes. Some refused to answer unless the visitor named 3 memories only the real person would know. And sometimes, they still got it wrong. Because the copies are learning. They don't come out of shadows. They don't crawl through walls. They come through water, any water, sinks, toilets, shower heads. A single drop on the countertop might be enough. They step through it like stepping into pants one leg at a time. And when they do, they wear you. Not perfectly, but enough. They remember your laugh, your limp, the way you hum when nervous. But they always get something wrong. Too polite, too stiff, too clean, like a body still wet on the inside. A man named Julian saw his wife standing on the porch one morning. She'd died 2 months ago. He opened the door. She smiled, walked in, hugged him, then whispered, "Your lungs have always belonged to us." She didn't blink for 3 hours. Didn't breathe either. But when Julian turned on the faucet later that night, the water came out warm, and it smelled like her perfume. The doubles don't need to eat. They sit at tables and push food around. They nod at jokes they don't laugh at, and sometimes they hum 4 notes when they think no one's watching. Then go still, like they're waiting for something to step into them completely. One teacher noticed a whole class full of them, not her students, versions of them, too neat, too pale, all with spiral notebooks filled with the same drawing: a door, underwater, open, waiting. She locked the classroom and ran, never came back. The next substitute went missing. Her car was found in the parking lot, windows fogged from the inside, wipers still on, the driver's seat dripping. But the keys weren't in the ignition. They were in the drain behind the school cafeteria sink. The town started keeping records of double sightings, a black book, descriptions, names, times. But the book kept changing, entries erased, dates switched, and on the last page, a note appeared in unfamiliar handwriting. "We are the reflection, not the shadow. They move in patterns now." People report entire families showing up for church, all dressed the same, all sitting still, all watching one person in the back. And if that person tries to leave, they all stand at once and smile and hum 4 notes. Then a pause. Then the person never leaves again. Max Dawson was spotted again, not a drawing, not a whisper, an actual boy. But this time, he was in 3 places at once. One version seen staring into a storm drain near the church. One walking barefoot across the school gym, leaving wet footprints. One knocking on the Dawson front door, holding his own baby tooth in his palm. All of them humming the same tune, in perfect harmony. The copies don't like fire, not even candles. They step back, blink rapidly, or whisper things in languages no one recognizes. But water, they love it. They watch bathtubs feel like they're being fed. Some sit beside puddles and stare into them for hours, whispering to whatever's still climbing. No one knows how many copies there are now. Some say a dozen. Others say the whole town turned months ago, and the ones still panicking, they're just the last to realize. The worst part, some people let them in, willingly, because they're quieter, kinder. They never raise their voices, never forget birthdays, never question your stories. They just sit, and listen, and smile, and wait for the water to rise high enough to take you both. So if someone knocks on your door tonight, and they look like your brother, or your child, or your own reflection, don't speak, don't move, don't blink. Just wait, because if they speak first, you're already too late, and what comes in wasn't you. Some towns have blueprints. Elmbrook has a memory. It doesn't live in paper or plans. It lives in bodies. It started with Grace Harper, 15, bright, funny. Used to sing in the church choir until the water ruined her voice, until she whispered her notes instead of singing them. One morning, she collapsed in the hallway at school. No trauma, no visible illness. But when the nurse lifted her shirt to check for a rash, everyone froze. Because Grace's skin was changing. Beneath her ribs, etched in gray, like veins of ink, was a map. Not of blood vessels, not of organs, of pipes. The nurse backed away, called the hospital. By the time the ambulance arrived, the lines had spread. Up her throat, around her arms, across her back, twisting, turning, feeding into a spiral that circled her belly button like a drain. She woke for 3 minutes before they sedated her. She didn't cry, didn't ask what was happening. She smiled and whispered, "It's just showing what's always been there." She never woke again. Her body dissolved in the hospital bed, not rotted. Dissolved, sheets left soaked in something clear that stained the floor like oil. The mattress hissed for 2 hours. and from the sink in the wall came the sound of something sighing. Others began to change too. A man named Darrell Bloom reported an itching in his arms. Scratched himself raw, then screamed. His wife pulled up his sleeves and saw not blood but blueprints. Piping, joints, drain lines, all drawn in his flesh like a diagram of something under him. She tried to call for help, but the sink answered first. 3 sharp knocks, and a voice like boiling water. "He's ready." Darrell ran outside, made it 2 blocks, collapsed at the feet of a quiet one. The quiet one bent down, touched Darrell's chest, and said, "Welcome back to the system," then walked away, humming. Hospitals began turning people away. Too many tattoos, too many maps. One woman's X-ray showed her heart replaced by a valve. One boy's tongue was forked like a drainage split. A school janitor sneezed and black mold sprayed from his nose in the shape of a spiral. It isn't just skin anymore. It's memory. The water remembers the rotes, the valves, the way through people like plumbing, and now it's marking its path. In us. On us. Through us. There's a term now. Mapped. For those who change. At first, it's a single mark. A spiral behind the ear. A damp spot on the wrist that never dries. Then it spreads, slowly. But always at night. Never under the sun. No one knows if it hurts. Most of the map don't speak. They hum. Or they stare. Or they write numbers on the walls. Some try to dig, not in soil. In tile. In porcelain. In their own bodies. Trying to uncover the drain inside. One woman dug through her belly with a spoon. When they found her, she was laughing. The last thing she said was, "It's in the belly of everything." Then she vomited water for 2 straight minutes. Clear. Steaming. Still. Some mapped have started joining. 3 or 4 at a time. Lying in circles on basement floors. Hand in hand. Spiraled around a floor drain. Chanting. Humming. And when someone tries to interrupt, they open their mouths in unison and exhale a single word, pressurized. The mayor's office declared martial law. Too late. The mayor was mapped, had been for weeks. When they tried to remove him from the building, he pulled back his collar and showed what had been growing along his spine, a perfect model of Elmbrook. In his veins, each street labeled in miniature script, each home marked, each drain glowing faintly blue beneath his skin. He smiled, said, "We were always just a copy," then turned on every faucet in the building and vanished into mist. The town records office caught fire that night. Except it didn't burn. The sprinkler system never turned off. For 8 hours, water rained from the ceiling, and the papers on the floor curled. Not from heat, but from steam. When it stopped, every map was gone. Only the blueprints remained, not for buildings, for bodies. Children now draw houses with pipes instead of walls, eyes with spirals instead of pupils, mouths with grates instead of teeth, and when asked why, they say, "It's not us. It's what's under us." So if you wake up with a cold spot on your chest, or find new lines beneath your skin, or see water beating between your knuckles, even when you're dry, don't scratch, don't peel, don't dig. 'Cause it's not growing on you, it's just remembering the way back in. Elmbrook doesn't need maps anymore. It has us. And we are the plumbing now. In most places, water is silent. In Elmbrook, it remembers. And now, it calls, by name. It began with the rain. Not heavy, not storming. Just a soft drizzle that tapped on windows like fingers. Nothing strange. Until people noticed it wasn't random. It was rhythmic, like syllables. Like a sentence whispered through a locked door. Then came the recordings. People setting their phones near the window at night. When they played it back, they heard something else between the drops. Abigail, Dean, Marcus, names. Each clear. Each spoken like a prayer, or a warning. At first, they thought it was a trick, interference, a hoax, until people started answering. Abigail DuPont opened her front door during a drizzle, said she felt pulled. She walked barefoot into the street, sat down, and whispered, "I've been found." Her neighbors watched from the porch. Didn't stop her, because the ground around her started breathing. Slow, shallow rises in the wet pavement beneath her. Like lungs, she smiled, and sank, not like drowning, like sinking into skin. Dean Rourke tried to resist. He heard his name every time he turned on the shower. He changed houses. He covered the pipes, but his name followed. He wrote it on his mirror in toothpaste, hoping to reclaim it. The next morning, the mirror was blank, and his name was written in mold along the ceiling tiles. He disappeared 3 days later, left behind a bathtub filled with warm, still water. His body never surfaced, but from the tub's drain his voice echoed back for hours. Dean Rourke. Confirmed. The map began whispering now. Not random muttering, not nonsense, just names. Names of people still alive. They'd sit in parks, in basements, in bathrooms with running water and repeat, Evelyn, John, Chris, Kara, Evelyn, John, Chris, Kara, until someone came to check on them. And then the whispering stopped, and the watcher would hear their own name in return, spoken just once, but always in their own voice. No one knows how the names are chosen. Some say it's guilt. Some say it's history. Some say it's who left their faucet running longest. But the ones who hear it never last long. They either vanish, or change, or start answering back. A preacher named Daniel took to the airwaves. AM radio, low power. He broadcast sermons from a locked room, warning people not to listen, not to respond. But on his final night, the signal changed. Mid-sentence. His voice faded, and something else spoke through his microphone. Daniel has been received. The signal went dark. The next time it buzzed, it hummed 4 notes, and the names of every caller who'd ever phoned the show. One by one, parents stopped naming newborns, just in case. They used numbers, initials, codes, but the water still found them. Started whispering strings of numbers in bathrooms at night. And when the parents checked the baby monitors, the infants were gone. Krebs soaked, windows sealed, and drains dripping even when dry. Some tried to drown out the names, played static, white noise, slept with earplugs. One man piped in loud music through every room of his home. Then he heard it his own name, in the silence between the tracks, between the beats, carried on the hiss of vinyl, soft, final. The more the town tried to run from their names, the more creative the water became. Graffiti in spirals, names spelled in condensation on windshields, toothpaste writing itself on mirrors, soup spoons swirling letters. One woman found her name at the bottom of her coffee mug, etched into the ceramic. She sipped again. The cup was empty. The name was gone. She never came to work again. Elmbrook became a place where no one spoke first, where you waited to see if someone would say your name before saying hello, where friends greeted each other with nods, not words, where silence wasn't just safety, it was survival. Then the town square fountain overflowed. No rain, no plumbing connected to it, but it spilled over, slow and steady, not flooding, just offering. Inside the water were teeth, hundreds, perfectly white, none human, all smiling. The mayor's voice returned that night, not in person, through every drain in town, synchronized, even those that had been sealed. His voice was calm, measured, almost kind. Names are how we find you, but you named yourselves. So we only come when called. Some now walk barefoot in the rain, trying to hear who's next. They tilt their heads, close their eyes, and when the water says their name, they sigh and step into puddles with their arms open. So if your faucet drips in rhythm, if your windows fog and reveal a single letter, if your own voice calls to you from the tub, don't answer. Don't speak. Don't even whisper. Because once it says your name, you'll never stop hearing it. And the next time you open your mouth, it won't be to speak, it'll be to let it in. Elmbrook woke up empty, not silent, empty. It began with the clocks. They stopped at 2:47 a.m. every clock. Digital. Analog went up. Battery powered. Not frozen, but still, ticking soundlessly. Just spinning hands, endless. directionless, time folding in on itself like water circling a drain. Then came the mail. Stacks of envelopes addressed to no one. No names, no return addresses, just soaked paper, smearing black ink in spiral shapes. Inside one envelope was a tooth. Inside another, a drawing of a bathtub filled with faces. The town's phones still worked, but no one remembered who to call. Contacts erased. Numbers forgotten. Even names felt foreign on the tongue. Spouses stared at each other over breakfast, asking, "Who are you again?" Some laughed, at first, until their child came downstairs and asked, "What do we call you?" At the school, teachers gathered outside, confused. Not because students weren't there, but because they didn't know what they taught. Books in their bags written in strange, wet glyphs. Subjects with no words. One notebook simply read, Lesson 1, remember you're forgetting. One woman stood in the street sobbing. Not because she lost her name, because she still had one. No one else did. They looked at her with hunger in their eyes, as if having a name was rude, like wearing too much perfume in a coffin. The hospital staff didn't fare better. They tried to admit patients but couldn't remember why. Charts blank, monitors blinking with no data. A man screamed in a hallway, but no one could name the pain. So they left him in a mop closet with warm water dripping on his forehead. He stopped screaming after 13 minutes. A church bell rang at 11:04 a.m. Then again at 11:04 p.m. Every hour in between, nothing. Just a low groan from the bell tower, as if it was being chewed. Price was gone now. Truly gone. But his voice played on loop from the dispatch radio in the abandoned police station. Not a distress call, not a report. Just this, I forget, I forget, I forget. But the water remembers. It always remembers, and so it spread, not death, not rot. Forgetting. Doors forgotten to be locked opened on their own. Fridges forgotten to be closed spoiled every meal. Even houses forgot to hold their shape, roofs sagging, walls leaning like memories too tired to stand up. One man dug a hole in his backyard, said he was trying to bury a memory, but he couldn't remember what it was. He found a pipe instead. It pulsed when he touched it. Then it whispered, "This is where you came in." He laid down beside it and never got back up. Then came the names again. Not spoken aloud this time, but written in fog on mirrors, carved into bathroom tiles, etched in soap scum on the sides of bathtubs. All of them wrong, just slightly, one letter off, one syllable missing. As if someone tried to remember you, but only got close enough. Families held name circles at night. They sat around candles and recited what they could recall, over and over, until the flame guttered out. Then someone would forget the name of the person sitting beside them, and the candle would relight on its own. Blue flame, singing 4 notes, then silence. The mapped were unaffected. They didn't need names. They walked as if tethered to something beneath the town. Like marionettes made of skin and water, they didn't forget. They reminded. Spoke back the names of those who'd lost theirs, but only once, and always in a whisper that left ears bleeding. Children drew their family trees, upside down, roots at the top, branches curling into drains. The word, me, written next to a spiral of mouths. The spiral isn't just a shape, it's a path. Memory isn't gone. It's coiled, wound tight like a wet cord, and the deeper you chase it, the more it changes you. Some followed their own names down, dug them out of journals, rewatched old videos, listened to voicemails on loop, trying to anchor themselves. But the moment they stopped listening, the moment they let their name rest, they changed. The water took shape behind their eyes, and someone else wore their skin by morning. In the end, only one rule remained. If you remember your name, don't speak it. If you forget your name, don't look in the mirror. And if you see your name written in water, don't read it out loud. Because the moment you speak what the water wrote, you become part of the system. And Elmbrook will never forget you again. There's a room beneath Elmbrook, It was never built, never drawn on blueprints, but it's always been there. They found it by accident. A crew tearing up hollow ground near the church to install flood barriers. They dug 6 feet before their shovels struck metal, not pipe. A hatch, round, rusted, and breathing. The men left, called it in. By the time investigators arrived, the hatch was gone. Just earth, smooth, damp, undisturbed. But the smell lingered, like rainwater left in lungs too long. And when one man leaned down to check the soil, it whispered, not words, a sound, a slow, sloshing inhale. Then his name, then silence. They never dug there again, didn't need to, because the door moved, started appearing, not on the ground, in bathrooms, kitchens, behind mirrors that fogged without reason. A wet circle, faint outlines of hinges, a spiral handle no one remembered touching, but always felt warm. One woman, Beverly Klein, opened it, said it appeared on her basement wall, said it knocked 3 times at 2:47 a.m. She thought it was mold at first, then it blinked. So she opened it. Her husband found the room empty, not just of her, empty of walls. The room stretched outward in every direction, dripping, breathing, and on the far side of the floor, something spiraled open into black. He stepped forward once, and forgot what he was doing. He only remembered again when the light bulb above him exploded, and the water on the floor spelled, "She's home now." Since then, the doors have been seen more often. Some sealed, some ajar, some already open. None of them lead anywhere a human should walk. They open into sound, into echoes, into wet machinery that doesn't follow physics or gravity. Rooms made of tile that drips upward, stairs that spiral into water without end. A hallway where your own voice walks ahead of you, repeating every fear you've ever had. And in every space, something hums 4 notes, a lullaby for the drowned. One boy came back, or something wearing him did. He said his name was Cody. Said he found a door behind his school's mop closet. Said he went through and saw the mouth. When asked what mouth, he drew a spiral with too many teeth. Each tooth had a name etched into it. Some were still blank, but some had his teacher's name, his mother's, even his own. When asked what the mouth wanted, he replied, "It eats what we forget." He drowned in his sleep the next night. No water in his lungs, no water in the house, just his mattress soaked in clear fluid, and the words, "Opan dafram anses ID," scrawled on the ceiling above him. Doors don't need keys in Elmbrook anymore. They only need silence, stillness, and someone willing to listen when the handle breathes. A woman named Teresa locked herself in a motel bathroom after one appeared in her mirror. She texted friends. Said it whispered old memories she never told anyone. Said it showed her a version of her wedding day where everyone smiled too wide, where the priest's face was a drain, where the vows were 4 notes hummed through wet teeth. When the motel staff opened the room, the mirror was gone. So was the wall, just a gaping hole. And a soft draft smelling of stagnant lakes. A camera left on the counter had 1 video on it. 12 minutes of static. Then the sound of water spinning. Then this, in Teresa's voice, "I remember now. It wasn't a door we opened. It was a mouth. The spiral is not a symbol. It's a motion, a pull, a promise. Every circle in Elmbrook is an echo of it. Drains, myths, wheels, even clocks, all spinning toward something deeper. They say when the final door opens, Elmbrook will fold. Not fall, not burn, just fold inward like paper soaked through. And everything inside, every name, every scream, every memory, will drain into what's always been waiting. So if you see a circle appear on your wall, if you hear knocking when no one's home, if you smell wet stone and copper, don't touch the handle. Don't answer the knock. Don't open the spiral, because whatever's behind it isn't coming in. It's already inside, and it just wants the door open from your side. Long before the first house was built, long before Elmbrook had a name, something was already moving beneath it, not growing, waiting. The town was built on hollow land. Everyone knows that now. but no one ever asked what made it hollow. They thought it was old mines, collapsed tunnels. Some said it was sinkholes, but what they called holes were throats. It was the plumbers who figured it out first, not Jared, the ones before him. A trio who handled the early grid, laying the first drainage lines under Main Street. Their notes, long lost, then found in the lining of a rusted-out toolbox, tell a different story. They wrote about finding bones, not animal, not human, lined up like offerings along the edges of pre-existing shafts, carved into rock like veins through a corpse. And the smell, like wet rust and tongue. They filed reports, tried to have the lines rerouted. But the mayor at the time, a man whose name no one remembers, had already signed the permits. And when they returned the next day, 2 of the plumbers were gone. The third, he couldn't speak. Tongue bitten clean off. He wrote one word on the hospital tile with his own blood, drained. After that, the town learned to stop asking questions about where things went when you flushed them. Waste, vomit, rot, all of it just disappeared. No clogs, no backups, no need for septic. The water just took. And for a while, it seemed like a blessing. Elmbrook was the cleanest town in the state. No plumbing issues, no mildew, no overflowing pipes. But the water had one rule: it only takes what's forgotten. It started small. A missing ring, a dropped earring, a baby tooth swallowed in a rinse cup. All gone. Never seen again. But then, it began giving things back. First was the tooth, found in a high school urinal. Not the one lost, just similar. Except it was wrong. Longer. Still bleeding. Still warm. And engraved with the word RN. Then came the hair, floating up from drains, braided. Still damp. Still smelling of someone. A girl no one remembered, but everyone recognized. By winter, every household in Elmbrook had found something they'd thrown away. Changed. A spoon twisted into a spiral. A wedding photo with someone else's eyes. One man opened his toilet to find his own baby blanket, soaking wet, still warm, and tied in a noose. He never touched the bathroom again. People started plunging their drains. Not with stoppers, with concrete, steel, prayer, but the water just moved. Took different routes, found weaker walls, seeped through ceilings, climbed through sinks. All it needed was a crack, and a little memory. The mapped ones started talking again. Not often, just once, together. They gathered near Hollow Creek, laid on the ground in spirals, and spoke in unison. We flushed what we feared. It learned our shapes. Now it returns to wear us. After that, the returns got worse. Not objects. Pieces. Bits of flesh in the bathtub that still twitched. Fingernails stuck in drains. Teeth with roots longer than fingers. A nose. Clean cut. Still breathing. A wristwatch. Wrapped around something that looked like a heart still beating. No blood. Just a slow pulse. Like it remembered time. Some residents began collecting the returns. Storing them. Cataloging, trying to build a body from the discarded. But the body always changed shape overnight, always rearranged itself into something more spiral, more mouth, more drain-like. And in the morning, the collector would vanish, and a new map would appear, eyes damp, lips sealed, spine curled into a loop. Children's drawings began shifting. No more families, no more houses, just toilets with hands, bathtubs with eyes. Kitchen sinks that opened into staircases spiraling down into ink, and one word scribbled in every margin: regurgitate. The doors had opened. Yes, but now the drains were spitting things out, things we tried to erase, sins we scrubbed with bleach, secrets we buried with soap and water, old names, old faces, old selves. So if your faucet runs brown, if your toilet bubbles at night, if the water in your sink is still warm hours after you used it, don't touch it. Don't look inside. Don't ask what it wants to give back. Because what you flushed was never gone, only digested, and now it remembers you, better than you remember yourself. The first to wear the water was a child. She was 6, name forgotten. Not erased, just slipped out of the world like a letter sliding off wet ink. She walked out of the school one afternoon barefoot and soaked. Her hair clung to her shoulders like seaweed. Her clothes were dry, but her skin wasn't. It shone, like it had been scrubbed too clean, like something was trying to polish her from the inside. The teacher asked if she was all right. She didn't answer, just smiled, then spoke with a voice that was not hers, older, thicker, slow, like someone speaking through lungs that didn't want to stay quiet. This one fits better. After that, the water started trying on others. People would lose time. 5 minutes here, an hour there, come back wet. Dry clothes, wet mouths. Some would return from the grocery store, unable to remember their route, or why their shoes were missing, or why their fingertips smelled of soap. One woman came home with her hands bandaged, no idea why, until her husband removed the wraps and found her fingernails gone, replaced with spiraled shells, still growing, still wet. A man in his 50s drowned standing upright in his living room. His wife watched it happen. No water, no flood. He just stopped breathing. Mouth opened wide like a faucet. Steam poured out. And from his throat came the words, "I almost had him." What's taking people now doesn't always replace them. Sometimes it rides just under the skin, whispers through their smile, tests their tone, cracks their joints like door hinges. You only notice when they get something wrong. Stir their coffee counter clockwise. Say the date as a song, or blink too slow, like they're trying to keep water from spilling out their eyes. The mapped have become midwives. They stand in hallways, stairwells, parks, watching the changed, nodding as if approving the fit. Some bring buckets to the ones still becoming. Others hum. 4 notes, no more. Just the sound of the plug being pulled. Not everyone survives the wearing. Some bodies break too early, reject the voice, crack open. One woman split down the middle in her sleep. Her chest bloomed open like a wet flower. Inside, no organs, just a pipe, coiled, rusty, still dripping. Hospitals turned into guessing games. X-rays showed spiral fractures where there were none. MRIs hummed with a 4th tone when scanning the skull. A nurse said she saw something wave back at her in the reflection of a patient's eye. The patient died that night. His last breath came through his tear ducts. The water doesn't just want to look like us. It wants to move like us, speak like us, feel like us. But it doesn't understand where we stop and it begins. So it spills. Always. Everywhere. Clothes found folded in the middle of rooms. Shoes filled with warm puddles. One man's mouth sealed with skin overnight, his eyes replaced with tiny whirlpools. They spun until he died. From the inside out. The voices are worse now, not from drains, from mouths. From inside the lungs of people who shouldn't be able to speak anymore. Corpses that whisper. Children in comas who sing lullabies underwater. The wind sometimes carries their echoes even when no one's there. And always, the same phrase returns. We're almost whole. It's not possession, it's occupation. Temporary until the water finds the right fit. And every attempt is practice. Every failure, a lesson. Every new host, closer. So if someone you love comes home too clean, if their breath fogs the air even in heat, if they hum while swallowing, watch their fingers. Watch their feet. Watch their reflection when they don't know you're looking. And ask yourself, are they still drying? Or is something just wearing them for now? Because the water is trying on everything, and sooner or later, it's going to find you. Pain is the last thing most people remember. In Elmbrook, it's the first thing the water asks for. They thought it was trying to replace them. But that was never the point. It wasn't looking for perfect copies. It was learning. Through experience. Through sensation. Through suffering. A man named Philip Crane came home with burns on both palms. Said he'd fallen. But the marks were spirals boiled in, coiled perfectly. When asked what happened, he laughed. Quiet. Flat. Then said, "It asked me what fire felt like." Then went silent. 2 days later, he was found curled under the sink. Eyes open. Skin unburnt. but his hands were gone, and in their place, wet impressions on the tile, like someone had been reaching up from the drain. The changed have started hurting themselves now. Not violently, not fast, with intention, cutting patterns into their arms, biting the inside of their cheeks, holding ice until it carves circles into their palms, then watching themselves bleed, not crying, not blinking, just watching. Hospitals are full, not of injured, of witnesses, people who saw someone else change, someone they loved, someone who smiled too wide after breaking a bone. One woman said her son giggled after pulling out his own tooth. Another watched her husband pour hot tea on his feet every morning until the skin bubbled. When she asked why, he said, "It doesn't know where the nerves end." A boy named Carter walked into the school nurse's office holding his intestines in his hands. Smiling, calm, he whispered, "Tell it this is how sadness feels." Then bled out. The floor stayed wet for 3 days, even after they replaced the tiles. The mapped are growing more expressive, no longer silent. They mimic now. Facial expressions, body language. Sometimes they stand in front of broken mirrors and practice emotion. Fury, grief, laughter, but it's always off. Always a little too slow. Like someone remembering what they've never felt. A quiet one was found standing in the middle of a flooded basement, repeatedly stabbing itself in the stomach with a spoon. Not deep, not fast, just steady, over and over, until it whispered, "Now it knows hunger," then collapsed into the water. The body was gone by the time police arrived, but the word, "Aquirud," was scratched into the concrete floor beneath the waterline. The town's dogs started disappearing first, then the cats. Now even the insects are gone. Elmbrook is quiet, too quiet, like something is listening closely for human emotion, and doesn't want distractions. They say the water dreams now, that it keeps memories of every feeling it's touched, and replays them at night. Residents wake with bruises they never got, acres they never earned, sadness they can't explain, and the feeling of being held too tight by arms that never touched them. One woman said she heard her dead daughter cry in the sink, a dry, hitching sob echoing from the drain. When she leaned close, she heard this. What is grief made of? Another man ran into the street with third-degree burns across his chest, claimed the water boiled him, not with heat, with shame. Said it poured down his throat and asked what regret tasted like. Said it savored the answer. He died at 2:47 a.m., same as the others. The mayor's office is boarded up, but recordings still play through the building's busted speakers. Just sounds, whispers of people crying, begging, apologizing, and always the last line, "It hurts better in flesh." The town has tried to fight it. Salt lines, fire, isolation, nothing holds, because pain spreads, and that's the point. Pain connects. Pain teaches. Pain is memory carved into meat, and the water learns best when we bleed. Now, when someone is injured in Elmbrook, people run away, because the water comes fast now, to taste, to listen, to ask, is this fear, is this rage, is this love, and sometimes it stays. So if your tears dry too slowly, if your bruises pulse at night, if your skin ripples when you scream, know this: it's not trying to end you, it's trying to be you. And it won't stop until it's felt everything. Elmbrook hasn't heard laughter in weeks. The real kind. Not the kind that slips out of someone's mouth when they're unraveling. Not the kind the mapped mimic in the mirror. But true joy. Gone. Because now the water smiles back. It started with a wedding. An old one. A VHS tape mailed to every house in town with no postage. Just a note in faded ink. See what we once were. People watched. 2 people. Happy. Dancing in a field near Hollow Creek. The groom laughing like he didn't know the end. The bride spinning barefoot, dress soaked at the hem. And the guests. They were familiar. Faces from town. But none of them aged. Not a wrinkle. Not a breath out of place. And every single one, smiling too wide. Unblinking. One man paused the tape at a frame where the bride leans into the camera. Her mouth is open, frozen, not laughing, stretching. Inside her mouth is another smile, another face. Wet. He burned the tape. But the laughter played through his vents that night. Soft, slippery, looped until 2:47 a.m., then silence. And his house flooded from below. The town's children started drawing happy faces in school. Not stick figures, not emojis, just mouths. Rows of mouths, layered into spirals, each smiling wider than the last, some upside down, some on the foreheads, some labeled Mommy, Pastor, Me, one labeled simply 8. When asked what it was, one girl shrugged. It's what laughs when I feel good. She hasn't spoken since, just hums. 4 notes, then giggles. The map began organizing plays. Yes, plays, little stage productions in parks. Scriptless, wordless. Just reenactments of moments no one remembers. One skit showed a birthday party with no cake, only candles sunk into buckets of water. Another depicted a family hugging, until they all submerged into a kiddie pool and vanished. When asked why, one mapped smiled and said, "It wants to know what celebration feels like." The copies got better, faster. They laugh on cue now, tears on command. They throw surprise parties for people they've never met, and they always end the same way: someone smiles too long, someone laughs too loud. Then the room goes cold, and the person at the center begins to cry. But the tears go up. Someone tried to bring joy back. The town's last clown, real guy, real red nose, real hunk shoes. Name was Freddy. He organized a kids' show in the town square, jokes, balloons, slapstick. He made a baby laugh. A real, honest laugh, and for a second, it felt right, until the child stopped, mid-laugh, stared into the clown's eyes, and said, voice echoing like a drain pipe, "That's not what funny tastes like." Then vomited water all over the cobblestone, and inside it, teeth. Too many. Still smiling. Freddy disappeared that night. His trailer left running, horns still honking every hour. No one opens the door anymore, because laughter echoes from within, and no one's sure who it belongs to. Joy is infected now. The moment you feel it, it curdles. The water flickers. The drains giggle, and something behind your bathroom mirror smiles back, not at you, through you, using your joy like a ladder, climbing. A woman tried to resist, watched no comedy, spoke no affection, refused hugs. One night her mirror fogged up a smiley face. She wiped it away. It came back, bigger, with teeth. She screamed. It laughed. People now tape their mouths before watching movies. They cry instead of laugh, celebrate with silence. Sing happy birthday in minor key, because the water can't yet taste sorrow that doesn't come from pain, only twisted joy. And it loves when we try to feel good, because then it comes closer. There's an abandoned daycare where toys rearrange themselves at night, lined in circles, all smiling. One plush doll leaks water from its eyes and whispers, "This little light of mine," then bursts into laughter. The window cracks, and the air goes thick. Joy is not safe in Elmbrook anymore, because when you laugh, it hears the opening. When you smile, it sees the window. And when you feel good, it wants you most. So if something funny happens, if warmth finds your chest, if your lips start to curl before your brain catches up, stop, swallow it, kill it. Because if the water sees your joy, it will come. Not to take it, to wear it, to walk in it, to use it to open the final mouth. It was just a cloud at first, a wide ring above Elmbrook, perfectly round, too round. People thought it was a weather anomaly. They stared, took photos. One man joked it looked like a plug. The next day he was gone. His house was dry, but the air inside was wet. The ring stayed, didn't move, didn't shift with the wind, and every day it seemed closer. Not lower, closer, like the sky was leaning in. By the third day, the spiral wasn't just above, it was within, found in tree rings, the curl of animal footprints, the patterns in spilled milk, no matter how it fell, even the way people blinked, one eye then the other, swirling shut. A boy drew it in his soup, said it made him Feel round inside. He laughed, then screamed, then threw up a length of garden hose. Still warm, still twitching. The local weatherman quit live reporting. His final forecast aired only once. It showed no map, just his wide, terror-filled eyes as he whispered, "It's not weather. It's the drain, and it's looking back." The spiral spread like rust. Roads warped in slow curves. Compasses failed. Birds flew in circles until they fell from the sky. Their beaks twisted, eyes gone. But their wings kept flapping, like something inside refused to let them rest. Mirrors cracked without touch. Water swirled upward. One woman watched her kitchen faucet twist sideways on its own. It whispered, "Spin with me." She hasn't spoken since. A group of survivors painted straight lines on the streets, paths that broke the curve. They called it untwisting, said it confused the water, kept their heads clear. But every morning, the paint peeled, lines curled overnight, and they woke facing the opposite direction than they remembered. One by one, they forgot why the lines mattered. One by one, they joined the arc. Church bells ring in spirals now, not chimes. A low, looping drone that grows louder the longer you listen. 4 notes, then silence. Then the pressure in your skull begins to build. The spiral isn't a symbol. It's a pathway. It draws you inward. Your eyes follow it. Your breath matches its rhythm. Your thoughts begin to turn in on themselves. Until you can't remember what came first, you or the shape. The mapped have formed a circle, a literal one. Their bodies line the hollow creek perimeter, each facing inward, each humming, no sleep, no breaks, their fingers clawing the soil into grooves that feed into the spiral at the center. Where water no longer pools, it rises, suspended midair, a vertical whirl of glistening steam and teeth. Some say it's the mouth, others say it's the plug. One man called it the return valve. He jumped into it smiling. No splash. Just the sound of a drain closing. Children no longer cry, they just spin. Slowly, in place, their feet carving circles into carpet and soil. They speak in riddles now. One girl said, "The world is thirsty for itself." Another boy whispered, "The sky is curving to fit." Elmbrook's horizon has folded. You can see the same street twice now. Once ahead of you, once above. At night, the stars spiral with the clouds, and if you stare too long, you'll feel your skull turn slightly to the left, just enough to let something in. A man screamed in the middle of Main Street, "Straigh tan mini." "Oat!" They tried, tied him down, aligned his limbs, set his spine against a chalk line, but his shadow kept spinning beneath him. When they looked again, he was gone. His restraints curled like vines, and his bones were found days later, twisted into a corkscrew. The water's no longer coming in. It's pulling everything out, stretching thought into loops, coiling time into repetition. Until all that remains is motion, not progress. Just turning. Always turning. So if your thoughts repeat, if your footsteps fall in arcs, if your dreams spin like drains, don't try to stop it. You'll only tighten the pull. Because the spiral doesn't lead to truth, it leads to depth. And the deeper it goes, the more of you it drinks. At 6 or 3 a.m. on a Wednesday, every photo in Elmbrook changed. Family portraits, graduation pictures, weddings, birthdays. They all stayed in their frames, untouched. But the faces were different, just slightly. A father smiling a little too wide. A daughter's eyes now slightly off-center. A mother who no one remembered wearing that necklace. One man flipped through his albums. He found a picture of himself as a child, blowing out candles. He remembered that day. He remembered the dog barking, the wind blowing the icing candles out before he could. But in the photo, no dog, no wind. And the cake read, "Welcome home." The library's history section collapsed overnight. Every local archive soaked. Pages unreadable. But when they dried, the ink was different. Elmbrook's founding year was changed from 1891 to uncertain. Founders' names rewritten in smudged spiral shapes. One caption beneath a black and white photo now read, The town emerged from beneath. The school's murals were scrubbed away. Children arrived one morning to find clean walls. But at recess, new paintings appeared, painted in muddy browns and watermarks. Scenes of people drowning while smiling. A crowd holding buckets to the sky as rain poured upward. One mural showed a spiral drain swallowing the sun. When asked who painted them, every child answered, it was already there. People began remembering events that never happened. One woman claimed she'd worked at a hardware store for 15 years. There was no hardware store. One man swore he buried his wife last spring. His wife sat next to him, silent, eyes glossy. He kept saying, "That's not her laugh." A journal was found in the woods. Soggy but intact. No name. Inside, dozens of entries. All dates spiraled backward. One entry read, "Today I was born with lungs full of creek water. I must have drowned in a previous version." The town charter now lists a 4th district no one can find. District D, population variable. Mayor warn. Slogan, "Why do not dry?" A road signs began pointing to streets that didn't exist. One man followed a detour and ended up back at his childhood home. Except he was still inside it. He watched himself play with toys he hadn't owned in decades. He knocked. The boy inside stopped playing, smiled, and whispered, "We'll fix the ending." Then he disappeared. Old recordings warped. Answering machine messages now contain pauses, breaths that weren't there before. Sometimes, people hear themselves say things they never said. It wasn't rain. We opened it together. I miss when water stayed in its lane. A tombstone appeared in the cemetery with today's date. It reads, Elmbrook, born whenever it needed to be. Died still happening. Pastor Elkins dug up the foundation beneath the church. Found a spiral staircase no one remembered building. 12 steps, then stone. At first, then wet tile, and at the base a plaque. Hair begins the forgetting. He made it to the bottom once. He won't talk about what he saw. Just sits on the pew now, rocking slightly, muttering, "This is the second version. The first one leaked. The spiral has reached time." It wins history backward, cuts it open, refills it. Every calendar page curls at the edges. Every newspaper headline feels like a second draft. Elmbrook is being rephrased. People forget who died and remember who never lived. Old friends show up and say, "You weren't supposed to stay." Then vanish, not into thin air, into water. Always water, and the town doesn't argue. It forgets like a good host. Shrugs and says, "Maybe I dreamed that wrong." So if your diary reads differently today than it did yesterday, if your childhood photos now include someone in the background watching, if your mother remembers your birthday as winter when you were born in July, don't correct her. Don't ask questions. Don't check the drains. Because the water is writing the final draft, and Elmbrook is a story it wants to finish. The last map of Elmbrook no longer matches the streets. Roads lead to buildings that don't exist. Old alleys have become hallways. Some homes now have extra rooms. Rooms no one remembers building. Rooms that breathe. The town didn't grow wrong. It shifted. As if Elmbrook isn't sitting on the land. It's sinking into something older. Something that remembers a different shape. Something that was always here, beneath the asphalt and memory. And now, it's rising to meet us. One man said he opened his basement door and found fog. Thick, warm, smelled like a flooded engine and rosemary. He stepped in. 2 days later, he returned through a neighbor's attic, naked, sobbing, hands covered in moss. He said, "It's not underground, it's inside." The town fits in its throat now. Others have gone in and never come back. Some vanish behind open closets. Some through washing machines filled with water that won't drain. A boy flushed a toy boat and disappeared after it. His mother still hears splashing at night. From the sink, from the ceiling, from inside the fridge. A new type of room appeared near the old fire station. Windowless, circular, wet walls. No floor, Just shallow water and a drain in the center. A humming sound echoes through the tiles. 4 notes, always the same. If you hum along, the lights flicker. If you finish the tune, something knocks from below. No one dares knock back. Not after the Sims family did. The next morning, their house had sunk. Just a roof, level with the street. Inside, nothing. No furniture. No family. Just a note carved into the floor. It was never your house. Some buildings now open directly into water. The gas station restroom flushes into a spiral stairwell. The school gym lockers leak mist. A local diner's pantry leads into a hallway where it always rains, and the rain whispers secrets from your childhood you never told anyone. Elmbrook's foundation has become a gateway, not to another place, to another version, an older one, more water than brick, more memory than map, more spiral than spine. The map no longer walk the streets. They flow. They bend through doors that shouldn't exist, stand on ceilings, slip between cracks. Sometimes they disappear through vents in a single exhale. Others rise through puddles with new faces, wearing expressions like borrowed masks. One woman followed them once, said she wanted to see what's underneath the church. They found her in a bathtub 2 towns over. Full suit. Shoes on, smiling. The tub was sealed. No door, no opening. Just a drain in the center and a word scratched on her neck. Om. The spiral center. The mouth itself has moved. It used to pulse beneath Hollow Creek. Now it circles the town. A perimeter of hunger. A slow swirl that changes the way time moves inside. One man walked from his mailbox to his porch and aged 3 years. His beard had grown. His memories scrambled. And his mailbox now belonged to someone else. Elmbrook is folding into the shape of what it was always meant to be. Not a town. A plug. A cork. A lid pressed down on something that knows the taste of light. And now the seal is thinning. The twist is almost complete. The water tugs. Every drain. Every spiral. Every open mouth is a valve. And the pressure is building. Even thoughts spiral now. People speak in loops. Forget mid-sentence. Repeat phrases like prayers. The drain is clean. We are inside it. The pipe was always open. A girl drew a map of Elmbrook last week. Not from above. From inside. Walls labeled like organs. Schools marked intake. Parks labeled lungs. City Hall marked tongue. And at the center of it all, a spiral labeled mouth. You weren't born in Elmbrook. You were flushed into it. And now the water remembers every shape you ever were. Every sound you ever made. Every step you ever took across a floor built above its throat. So if your hallways get longer, if your rooms feel rounder, if your mirrors hum 4 notes and your stairs smell of brine, you are already inside it. You always were. And now it's closing around you. It wasn't thunder. It sounded like it, yes. A deep shaking crack that rolled through the floorboards and teeth at the same time. But thunder doesn't whisper your name after it fades. It happened just after 2:47 a.m. Everyone who still slept in Elmbrook shot upright in bed. Some choked, some wept. One man tried to tear out his ears with a spoon. What they all heard. Not a scream, not a growl. Just one word, impossible to pronounce. But somehow known, felt in the bones. Understood like a memory you don't know how you made. The town called it the first word. It came with no language, just meaning. And the meaning was hunger. Not food hunger, not thirst, something deeper, older. A kind of emptiness shaped like you. The babies were the first to respond. They stopped crying. They smiled, in unison. All of them, even the ones in hospitals, even the ones in wombs. Every faucet turned on that night, by itself, not full force, just enough to drip. A slow, steady beat. 4 notes, then a pause. Then the drains began to hum, not in sound, in pressure. Every pipe pushed back, not from within, from under. The water wasn't rising anymore. The ground was sinking. A woman named Marie Withers wrote one word on her bedroom wall in lipstick before vanishing. Listen. She was deaf. In the morning, the sky was wrong. Still blue, still bright. but twisted slightly like you were seeing it through water, or through the lens of an eye that didn't blink. And in the center, a thin, dark spiral, turning just slowly enough to notice, but just quickly enough to dread. People tried to leave. Cars wouldn't start, boats flipped, roads looped. One family made it 12 miles before they found themselves back in their driveway. Their mailbox smiled. The town radio station went live again. No DJ, no music, just static. Then the first word again. Slower this time, drawn out like a question, and this time, someone answered. A child's voice, giggling, then whispering. We're still inside the whisper. Then silence. That night, the walls thumped, not knocks. Heartbeats, synchronized, measured, 12 pulses, then a pause. Then 13. Then laughter. The map gathered at Hollow Creek, but it wasn't Hollow Creek anymore. It had widened, split, opened like lips, and in the middle, a drain the size of a house, spinning, filled with eyes, none human, none blinking, all wet. The map bowed, not in worship, in recognition. They began to speak the first word back, together, over and over, until their mouths no longer moved. The sound came from their chests, from their spines, from pipes beneath their skin. Then the ground coughed, just once. A ripple tore through the town square. Street lamps flickered, windows shattered, toilets exploded in laughter, and one man's head turned fully backward and said, "It liked how we sounded." Then he collapsed, and water poured from every orifice, still smiling. The first word kept coming, nightly now, always at 2:47, sometimes whispered, sometimes screamed, always inside. People started speaking it in their sleep. Some woke with blood on their tongues, others with spiral bruises on their backs. One girl whispered it into her father's ear, and he aged 30 years in an hour. When he died, his blood spelled the word in cursive across the walls. It pulsed for 3 days before drying. The town no longer hides from it. It speaks back now, whispers into showers, hums in toilets, teaches the phrase to mirrors, who mouth it silently when you're brushing your teeth. One man caught himself whispering it to his soup. Then he poured the bowl down his throat, spoon and all. The first word is more than sound. It's a command, a key, a signal, a welcome. And the more you say it, the more your throat remembers how it used to shape things. Because you weren't built to speak it. But something in you remembers when you could. So if your dreams begin looping, if you wake with your mouth open and don't know why, if water starts dripping from your ceiling in rhythm with your pulse, don't answer the word. Don't echo it. Don't feel joy when it speaks. Because the first word was never meant for you. It was meant for what's wearing you now. It started with music, but not the kind you remember. No melody, no rhythm. Just a low, watery drone. At first, people thought it was a faulty pipe, or their ears ringing. But the sound followed them. Not through air, through bones. It's in the sink now, in the hum of appliances, in the pulse between thoughts. You only hear it if you stop listening for everything else. If you're quiet enough to catch it hiding between the hum of your fridge and the tick of your heart. And once you do, you can't unhear it. Umbrook doesn't echo anymore. Sound doesn't bounce, it folds, loops back in on itself like reverb inside a clogged throat. You scream, and the scream returns before it leaves your mouth. Slightly slower, slightly wetter, slightly older. The town has become an instrument, a living drain organ, flesh tuned to frequencies too low to chart. When it rains, the droplets hit metal like fingers on a piano. When the wind blows, it moans through gutters like a bow against a cello made of teeth. And when you cry, the water laughs back. A man named Russell Porter played his violin at the edge of Hollow Creek. He was deaf, didn't know the first word, didn't care about spirals. He just wanted to play. His wife said the music made the sky shiver. The spiral in the clouds stopped turning for 3 minutes, then began turning backward. Russell vanished mid-note. His violin fell to the ground, still vibrating, still humming, still playing, even now. After that, no one played music again. Not real music, because everything is music now. The pipes sing at night. The drains breathe in chords. The quiet ones hum in harmonies that make mirrors crack and clocks tick out of sync. The map gathered at the center of town and conducted. No instruments. Just bodies, movements, every head tilting at once, every footstep timed like metronomes. When they inhaled, it sucked the wind from lungs 3 blocks away, and when they exhaled, all the drains in Elmbrook spoke, one note, low, thick, impossible to describe. But it tasted like copper, mildew, and memory. Someone recorded it, uploaded the audio online. Anyone who listened had a nosebleed within seconds. One girl in California carved a spiral into her cheek before her phone melted. The video was removed. But the hum still leaks. In earbuds, in shower radios, in wind chimes that shouldn't work indoors. The quiet ones no longer speak. They tune. They adjust their jaws like knobs. Click their fingers into new keys. A man said he saw one pluck the air like strings and pull laughter out of the silence. Another claimed a map tapped his ribs like a xylophone and made his regrets play in order. You don't hear music in Elmbrook anymore. You become it. One woman clapped once, and her echo never stopped. It trailed her, followed her, got louder, until she screamed, and the echo kept screaming. The babies hum now, in their sleep, in spirals. Their cries don't wail, they build, like crescendos to a song no one remembers learning. One baby sang the first word through her hiccups, then stopped breathing, but her throat kept vibrating. The spiral isn't just a symbol now, it's notation, a musical phrase. A score written in curves and depth. Each spin is a note, each drain a mouthpiece, and the whole town, an instrument for something beneath to play through. Elmbrook is the song of the drowned, a hymn composed in bones and basement floods, and it's reaching its chorus. So if you feel your voice humming when you haven't spoken, if your house creaks in time with your heartbeat, if water moves when you sigh, don't sing, don't whistle, don't hum along, because the spiral only needs one more note, and it wants it from you. At first, it was just a crack in the paint, a line above the window. Then the drywall flaked, and the hole breathed. Karen Holtz was the first to say the word. Not the first word. This one was smaller, quieter, more human. She said, "It's got lips." Her bedroom wall had started whispering, not loudly, just consistently, like someone pressing their mouth flat against the other side of drywall, asking to come through. The hole had teeth, not human ones. Smooth, rounded, wet like coral, but pulsing like gums. She left. The wall stayed. The mouth grew. Elmbrook began to open up after that, literally. Houses began speaking back, walls peeled, plaster split, and from the gaps came breaths. Not air, not drafts, but breaths, warm, wet, cadenced. Rooms developed pulses. Pipes began to twitch when touched, and at night, every house made a sound like chewing. People started finding lips where they didn't belong, behind light switches, under cabinets, inside pillows. One woman kissed her husband goodnight, only to realize the lips didn't move right, too soft, too wide. And when she pulled away, her husband was still sleeping. The mouth she kissed, gone, but a slick smear remained on her cheek, salt and rot. Mouth drains are the worst. They don't just speak, they ask questions. Late at night, when you're brushing your teeth, what part of you can you live without? Do you remember what silence felt like before you were born? Would you miss your name if we took it gently? Some people answer. Those people don't come back, not really. They hum, they smile, they cry in reverse. The mapped have started feeding the mouths, bits of themselves, hair, teeth, fingers. No blood, just offerings. One was seen lowering her own eyeball into a mouth behind her shower curtain. The mouth swallowed and whispered, almost ready. Construction crews tried sealing the mouths. Didn't matter. New ones opened behind the patchwork. More elegant. Some with tongues now. Some that sing. A man heard Ave Maria in his oven vent. His wife found him smiling under the sink, covered in wax and tears, whispering. It liked the way she sang sorrow. People started losing their voices. Not through injury. They'd open their mouths to speak and nothing would come out, because the mouths in the walls had taken their sound, stored it, sampled it, replayed it in wet echoes at 2:47 a.m. The mouth in the mayor's office laughed. Once, just once. But every wall in the building cracked at the same time, and the laugh still loops through the pipes at random. Half-mouthed, like it's practicing. Children are being born mouthless now, but they still cry, soundlessly. The vibrations coming from beneath their skin, as if something deeper has found a new vent. A girl named Jessa was found in the woods, fingers pressed to the dirt, whispering into the ground. When her parents asked what she was doing, she said, "Telling it where my mouth will go when I'm gone." She smiled, and something smiled back from the dirt. The spiral was never a symbol. It was a throat muscle, a turn, a swallow. And now that it's learned to feel, to sing, to ache, it needs mouths. Not just yours. All of them. Anywhere a word could once be spoken, it opens. To taste, to echo, to say the last line of the song. So if your wallpaper starts bubbling, if your closet hums a lullaby, if your sink giggles when the water runs, leave. Now. Because the spiral doesn't need to speak through you anymore. It's building its own voice. And the next time your house calls your name, it won't ask for permission. It will kiss you from the inside. They used to crave blood. That's what people thought. But Elmbrook taught them different. The mouths don't want flesh, they want feeling. Not raw, marinated. It started with memories. One woman said her kitchen walls asked her to remember her mother's funeral. Said it whispered things like, "What did her hands smell like? Who didn't cry loud enough? Where did you wish you had stood instead?" She didn't answer. So the pipes burst. The water scalded her feet, and in the steam on her oven door, the word appeared, Huangury. Another man was found standing on his roof at dawn. He was sobbing. Not because of loss, because of a dream he'd had. He said the dream had been beautiful. A perfect day from childhood. Sun, bread, a laugh his father only made once. The walls had smelled it on him. He said they licked it off. And when he woke up, he didn't remember who his father was. Just the hunger left behind. The mouths aren't mouths anymore. They're ovens. Slow cookers. They tenderize. They age your joy, your heartbreak, your guilt until it's ready to be devoured. And when you feel it most, they feast. One teacher was found catatonic in the school bathroom. Mouth open, eyes wide, dry. Her final words. They asked about my first kiss. I didn't want to give it, but I remembered anyway. The memories don't even have to be yours. A boy watched a war movie, cried. The mouth in his wall whispered. Whose grief was that? He screamed. The wall opened wider, and from the drain came a uniform patch, still wet, with a name he'd never heard. The mapped walk in pairs now, one to remember, one to taste. They sit beside crying people in the street, lay hands on them, hum. The moment the pain rises, they nod, step away, and something moans in every drain in town. You can't lie to them. You can't fake a feeling. They know. They weigh it. Measure its temperature. Check how long it's been fermenting. They want the core of you, the first regret, the oldest dream, the wound that never even scabbed. They love regret best, especially the kind that comes with silence, that memory you never told anyone, that thing you wish you said at the funeral, that time you smiled during a goodbye because you thought you had more time. People now walk with their heads down, not to avoid attention, but to keep from recalling. Because the moment you remember something that matters, your sink will whistle. Your phone will buzz from an unknown number. Your reflection will mouth your name. And from inside the drain, you'll hear, "Let us eat it." You won't bleed. You'll forget, not everything, just that moment, that kiss, That laugh. That breath you held when you saw your first snowfall. You'll know it's gone because it'll leave behind a shape. A hole in your stomach when the memory doesn't come. A single tear for a feeling you can't place. It's how the water grows now. Not with gallons, with grief, with joy. With you? A family turned their entire house into a vacuum, sealed silence. No memories shared, no stories told, nothing written. They lasted 3 weeks, until their son whispered, "I miss the beach," in his sleep. By morning, his bed was wet, and his voice was gone. In its place, a drain in his pillow, still spinning. Now there are feeding stations, not official, just basements with soft lights and chairs. You sit, a map sits across. You speak a memory into the room, then leave. Lighter, colder, less human, but still alive. For now, you'll know when you're next, because your best moment will come back, all at once, too real, too warm. You'll feel like you're back there, living it, laughing, breathing it in. And then, the pipes will groan. And a voice will ask, do you love it enough to lose it? Say nothing. Think of nothing. Be empty. Because once the mouth tastes joy, it won't spit it out. And the only thing worse than losing your pain is giving up the one thing that made being human worth it. You've never written a recipe for yourself, but the mouths have. They're good at it. They've had time. They've tasted every piece of you that matters. Now, they want to rebuild you their way. It starts with rewrites. Little ones. You go to brush your teeth and realize your toothbrush is in the wrong hand. You open your closet and find only blue shirts, even though you hate blue. You look in the mirror and your smile doesn't remember where to stop. Then come the corrections. A man swore he'd never smoked. He woke up with yellowed fingers and ash in his lungs. No cigarettes, just a soot-stained mouth in the wall whispering, "We're seasoning you properly." Your habits shift next. You start boiling water just to listen. You hum without knowing the tune. You find yourself looking at spirals the way a starving man stares at soup. The mouths don't want what you are. They want what you would have been if they'd made you first. Not a person, an ingredient. One woman found her birth certificate rewritten in crayon. Name changed, parents wrong, date of birth replaced with ALDNT. Her body began rejecting clothes that didn't match the new name. She no longer slept under her own sheets. Only plastic, easier to rinse. The map started writing cookbooks, not recipes for food, recipes for people. One entry was titled, "Hollow Man, Extra Ack." Ingredients: 1 childhood loss, 2 betrayals, 3 silent screams boil until compliant. They read these aloud in the town square. Every time they finished a recipe, someone collapsed, not dead, just emptied. The mouths would burp from nearby sinks, sated. For now, one teenager said her diary wrote back. She opened it to a blank page, but the lines were full. Recipes for her future first heartbreak at 17. Panic attacks from 20 to 25. 1 suicide attempt. Recovery curve optional. At the bottom, tastes like sorrow. Do not overcook. A man tried to resist. He tattooed his own story onto his skin. Names. Dates. Truths. The mouths licked their lips when they saw him. One whispered, "Ah, a marinade." He peeled the ink off his chest days later. Not because he wanted to, because the shower asked. They're not making you for them. They're making you for something bigger, something that's coming. A feast of selves. A stew of soul flavors. And the mouths are the prep station. You are being infused with spiral, stretched into shape, salted with memory and sweat. Set on simmer, until the final mouth opens, and devours the dish that was once you. The ones who finish cooking walk differently. Not like they're proud, like they're complete. Like they've been plated and served. And now they're waiting to be picked up. A girl drew a version of herself in chalk, but her skin was labeled bone broth. Her spine was noodles. Her tears, brine for seasoning. She said, "They just needed to know how long to bake my name." A time doesn't pass the same in Elmbrook anymore. Ovens preheat at midnight. Mirrors fog before you breathe, and every hour is marinated in the sound of boiling skin and longing. The mouths aren't asking anymore. They're following instructions. They know what parts of you to tenderize next. They whisper the next step while you sleep. Reduce laughter by 30%. Simmer heartbreak until flavor deepens. Fold in shame. Serve with silence. So if your past tastes different when you recall it, if your body craves foods you've never liked, if your name starts to smell like soup when you say it, would you eat anything warm? Don't speak with flavor. Don't think about the best version of yourself, because they'll taste it, and they'll want to finish the dish. You weren't the meal. You were the menu. And now that they've chosen the recipe, they won't stop until you're done. It wasn't an invitation. It was a command. Every mailbox in Elmbrook received the same letter, no envelope, no stamp, just damp paper. Handwritten ink, no name, only 3 words. It's time. Come. Nobody knew where. Nobody asked. They just felt the pull. Some resisted. Some tied themselves to beds. Others fled into the forest, holding their breath. But the spiral doesn't need distance. It only needs hunger. They gathered anyway. Hundreds of them, drawn like strings on a plug unraveling from a basin. Their eyes blank, feet bare, smiles wrong, each humming a different note until they all began to harmonize. They met in a field that didn't exist yesterday, where the mall used to be, now replaced by tall grass, wet, steaming. In the middle stood a table, no legs, no wood. Just water, flattened in perfect shape, rippling gently with every breath, and chairs, 33 of them, each made of something different. Glass, bone, rust, flesh, spiral-shaped backs, and waterlogged cushions that moaned when touched. One man tried to speak, to ask what they were doing. The chair screamed. So he sat. It sucked him down half an inch, then stopped. Waiting, they came from every part of Elmbrook, quiet ones, mapped, newborns with spiral mouths, strangers with familiar eyes. Even the drains sent representations, wet shapes, bodies made of pipe and hair and water memory. One wore the face of someone you almost loved once. The mouths didn't join them. They opened beneath, a wide circle around the table. Dozens of wet grins in the earth, all turning clockwise. They didn't speak. They listened. And they wanted a show. The first word was spoken again. This time, by the wind, by the birds, by the worms in the dirt. And then the table filled itself. Not with food, with versions. Versions of everyone seated. A second self, shaped like desire, or guilt, or the moment you never stopped regretting. Each copy sat across its source, and smiled. Then the knives appeared. Not on the table, in the backs of throats. Everyone reached in and pulled. Same blade, same size, same message etched into the handle. Cut the piece that hurt the most. They didn't hesitate. They carved, not flesh, memory. One man pulled a crying child from his ribcage and laid it on the water. A woman screamed as she ripped out the smell of her mother's house and placed it gently beside her fork. One boy tore out a song he'd only ever sung once, on a hill in the rain, and the water shuddered when it hit the table. The copies applauded. The mouths giggled. And then they began to eat. Not messily, ritualistically, one bite at a time, tears streaming from their borrowed faces, chewing as if in mourning, as if savoring the pieces we'd never wanted but could never forget. The table groaned, sank half an inch. The water rippled. The spiral in the sky spun faster, and one mouth whispered, "The meal is sacred. We thank you." They fed all night. And when it was over, the pieces were gone. So were the people who brought them. Left behind only their chairs, still soaked, still warm, still humming 4 notes into the morning fog. The field vanished with the sunrise, replaced by concrete again, but the table remains, beneath the surface, always ready, because it wasn't dinner, it was communion. And the spiral only set the table once it knew we'd bring our own pain. So if you hear your kitchen pipes harmonizing at midnight, if your calendar marks a date you don't remember writing, if you dream of a table and wake with damp footprints on your floor, don't go. Don't follow. Don't bring a dish. Because once you feed the spiral, it remembers your flavor. And the next time, you'll be the table. No bones were left. No stains. No breath fogged the field the next day. Only silence. Not emptiness. Silence. The kind that watches you. People forgot the meal. They woke up lighter. Hollow. But not free. Not better. Because forgetting isn't healing. It's clearing. Like wiping a counter before cutting into the next thing. And the spiral. It's sharpening the knife. It started with the street signs. One by one, the names flaked off, peeled like scabs. Main Street, gone. Ash Avenue, gone. Memory Lane, blank. Just signposts now. No direction. No history. Next were the house numbers. Faded, then vanished, then replaced. Each one now marked with a single spiral, drawn in chalk that never smudges, glows when wet, turns slowly when no one looks directly at it. Then came the names. People forgot their neighbors, their children, their own reflections. One woman stared at her wedding photo for hours, sobbing. Not because it was wrong, but because she could feel someone missing, and couldn't remember who. She whispered, "Why would I frame this?" Hospitals reported patients with blank records, no birthdays, no allergies. One man's chart read only, "served." A teacher erased the whiteboard and it never wrote again. The marker squealed. The board cried. The spiral appeared in its corner, not drawn. Grown. Like a mold you can't bleach away. A fire truck turned inside out while parked. The siren still worked, but now it screamed a baby's name, one that never belonged to anyone. The sound echoed through town for 13 minutes before cutting off mid-cry. The spiral was cleaning, not destroying, just preparing. All the drains began to pull harder, not visibly, emotionally. People walked through rooms and forgot why they entered, laughed and didn't know what was funny, said things like, "I feel rinsed. I think I'm thinning. I remember something I haven't lived yet." The spiral doesn't use soap. It uses absence. It doesn't scrub. It spins until everything is smooth, flat, glossy, ready. The church pews turned to glass. The hymn books bled out their ink. One cross melted, not from heat, from instruction. It simply understood it wasn't needed anymore. The sky began to fade at the edges, not darken, just pull away, like a curtain slowly drawn back to reveal a stage we never meant to see. And behind that stage, a mouth, not open, not closed, just waiting. One woman left a note before stepping into the creek. "I was never here, but thank you for remembering me wrong." Elmbrook isn't dying, it's being reset. People don't scream when they disappear now. They sigh, like a task completed, like warm water down the drain after dishes, like the end of a long, wet breath. A child pointed at a dog and said, "I think that used to be me." No one laughed, because the dog nodded, and then melted. Books are empty. Photos are blank. Mirrors show rooms you've never been in. One of those rooms has you in it, cleaning something you don't recognize. Smiling. Humming. Wearing clothes that aren't yours. Soon, there will be no names left, only labels. Soon, there will be no doors, only openings. No voices, only tones. No people, only contents. And when it's clean enough, the spiral will open, not up, not down, out. It'll stretch across the sky like a rinse. Wash through the dirt, leave behind only that slow, humming whisper. You've been wiped. So if your memories feel soft, if your name tastes like someone else's, if the drain pulls even when it's dry, you're next, and you won't be buried. You'll be buffed away, because the spiral doesn't kill, it prepares. And you were just a dish, and the sink's almost empty now. It didn't come with fanfare, or flames, or trumpets. It came quietly, like a breath you didn't know wasn't yours, like a shadow cast by something above water. The first sign wasn't a sound. It was stillness. Birds froze mid-flight. A plane stalled mid-sky, flags stopped flapping, and for 23 minutes nothing moved but the drains. They spun, every one, toilets, showers, sinks, gutters, spinning in perfect sync, not clockwise, not counterclockwise, inward, as if reaching for a center that wasn't on this side of the world. And then, the stretch. The horizon pulled, like taffy. Houses leaned, trees bent. People screamed without making noise, their faces warped like clay in slow, invisible fingers. The air puckered, and in the center of town, where the diner used to be, the earth peeled back. Not a hole, not a pit, a slip, a seam, torn, dripping, shivering, wide enough for something to step through, and it did. No one remembers what it looked like, because it wasn't a shape, it was pressure, memory, tune, an echo that got there first, a wet presence that made you feel like a memory of yourself watched from the bathtub. The sky dimmed, not darker, just less yours, and the stars, gone, all of them, replaced by eyes, not blinking, just waiting, watching what their voice had opened. The thing didn't speak, it broadcasted, into teeth, into thoughts, into the wetness of your eyes and the ache behind your knees. It spoke to organs, to dreams, to the part of you that prays without words. And this is what it said: you've been shaped correctly. The mapped bowed, their skin unraveled in spirals, revealing pipes beneath. The quiet ones smile. Their mouths split sideways and hummed the first word in harmony, and those who weren't ready vanished, not taken, erased, as if they'd never been shaped at all. The town folded gently, roofs kissed roads, mailboxes curled inward, storefronts swayed and liquefied like butter left too close to a fire, and in their place, wet corridors, soft staircases, flesh walls, memory tile, rooms that pulsed with breath and old lullabies. Elmbrook became an organ, not a town, a welcome mat, a tongue pressed flat so something bigger could step through and taste it did. Not with teeth, with recognition. It reached into basements and remembered where it left its hands. It walked through school hallways and hummed its own childhood back into being. It saw mirrors and called itself complete. And when it laughed, water rose. Not from below, from inside you. Because the final drain was never under your feet, it was in your spine. Everyone in Elmbrook dropped at once. No pain, just sudden absence, and the thing stood alone, breathing, listening, tasting the town through the teeth it taught us to make. It stayed for 13 minutes, then turned its head, not toward the sky, not toward the earth, but toward you, wherever you are, reading this, feeling that trickle behind your ears, that warmth in your gut, that curl in your fingertips, and it whispered, not with mouth or wind, but through your reflection as it began to ripple. You taste ready too. The first word it spoke was your name, but not the one you use now. The first one. The one whispered before your parents chose a label. The one spoken by something wetter. Everyone heard it differently. Some heard it in dreams. Others in the pause between heartbeats. One woman heard it inside her coffee cup, whispered by the steam. It made her cry. Not from fear, from recognition. She said, "I forgot I had a name like that." Then drank the cup dry, including the glass. The voice didn't echo. It nested. In your ears, in your joints, in your passwords and your baby pictures and the way you lean when you cry. It found the soft places and pressed. Not hard, just enough to leave indentations. It was the spiral speaking now, not with tone, with truth. And it said things like, you weren't born. You were assembled. You're the drip at the end of someone else's question. You belong to anything that can drink. People stopped talking. Not out of fear, out of respect. Because anything you say now becomes part of it. One man told his wife he loved her. She smiled, then turned to water, clear, warm, still smiling. The map started singing, not with sound, with mouths that don't move. They projected images, flavors, sensation like silk soaked in bone broth. It wasn't music, it was instruction, a recipe for speaking without being heard. Children now breathe in chords. One boy exhaled a hymn that made all nearby insects spiral into the ground and bury themselves. The next day, the soil whispered, "We've been waiting." The spiral doesn't want prayer. It wants chorus. It doesn't need worshippers. It needs mouthpieces. And now you are the echo. You hum in your sleep. You mutter numbers while brushing your teeth. You leave notes you don't remember writing, signed with spirals and soaked in salt. One note found pinned to a forehead read, "We speak now through the drains in you." Bathrooms are where the sermons happen. Toilets gurgle poetry. Showers steam prophecy. Sinks chant rhythm. And bathtubs, they translate. Not from one language to another, from you to it. So the spiral can understand what it's already becoming. It's not content to speak. It wants to be spoken in, like a dialect, like a virus. Like a prayer someone leaves open in the throat, just long enough for something wet to slip between the syllables. Elmbrook is gone, but not vanished. Rephrased, turned into a phrase that repeats in you. The voice is lingering, and it says, "Speak me until you're hollow. Sing me until you're shaped. Echo me until you're home." If your faucet mouths your name, if your tongue tastes of metal, if you wait humming a tune you've never learned but suddenly know, don't finish the song. Because the last note isn't yours. It's the mouth inside the mouth. And it's been waiting its turn to speak. It started with the footprints, not muddy, not bloody, wet. Clear water tracking across carpet, asphalt, stone. Always walking away from the bathroom, always in pairs. Too large to be human, too thin to belong to anything else. They evaporated fast, but not before people felt them. Like a pressure in the room after thunder. Like something big had just exhaled and hadn't quite left yet. Then the voices stopped. The pipes went silent. Mirrors stopped fogging. The spiral slowed. Because the thing that had been whispering wasn't in the walls anymore. It was walking, not through doors, not down streets, through people, through rooms, through time. A woman dropped her spoon mid-bite and said, "It just passed through me." She forgot what she was eating. She forgot who she was eating with. She forgot her own face. Hospitals filled with patients missing names, birthmarks, teeth, not removed. Walked out, as if the spiral had stepped inside and borrowed what made them stay. A man found a puddle in his shoes, but no leak, no water source. Just a smell iron and cedar and breath. Inside the puddle was a voice. It said, "Thank you for waiting." The thing didn't walk like us. It turned as it moved, spiraled. Not in circles, in angles that blood. You'd see it only in reflection, in spoons, in the ripple of a bowl, in the tear at the edge of your eye just before you blink. And then, gone, but your shadow would be wet. One child watched it pass through the playground. Every swing creaked, not from motion, from memory. She pointed and whispered, "It's wearing someone I almost became." Then she disappeared, not in a scream, in a blink. And her teacher cried for an hour but couldn't say why. Dogs howl now, not at the moon, at the sink, at the dishwasher, at puddles that smell like childhood guilt. They sense it walking, and they bark not to warn you, but to beg it to keep walking. Security footage caught glimpses, a body flickering, long arms, no mouth, only a coil where a throat should be, dripping, breathing, refracting like heat above asphalt, but cold. So cold. And the caption on every screen changed to one sentence. This is what a voice looks like when it gets tired of waiting. People tried to speak to it, but their words bent, got sticky, curled back into their tongues like worms. Because the spiral doesn't hear speech, it tastes it. And if it doesn't like your sentence, it erases the speaker. Then the drain marks appeared, on foreheads, on backs, on floors, little black swirls like birthmarks. They pulse when it's near. They open if you're loud. One man laughed and his mark drained his echo. He hasn't made a sound since. The spiral walks now, not looking for anyone, looking for somewhere. A final place. A mouth big enough to speak the last word. And when it finds it, There won't be a scream. There won't be a bang, just a pause. The kind before a record plays. The kind before a plug is pulled. So if your windows go still, if your shower head trembles, if you hear wet feet on dry floors behind you, do not turn. Do not speak. Do not ask what it wants. Because what walks now is not looking for permission. It's looking for a place to echo forever. It didn't come loud. It came low. Not below you. Inside you. Like a tooth loosening in your skull. Like a breath that wasn't yours in your lungs. Like a throat clearing without a sound. At exactly 2:47 a.m., every single person still left in Elmbrook exhaled at once. Not on purpose. As if they'd been holding it for years. A long, wet sigh from hundreds of lungs. And in that breath, the town spoke. One word. Not English, not language, just sound given shape. The taste of soap, the color of mildew. The sound of a scream remembered wrong. People dropped to their knees, not in pain, in release. Because the word didn't ask permission. It didn't need understanding. It understood them first. The ground shivered, not cracked, not shook, shivered, like skin, like nerves. The spiral in the sky unwound, and what poured out wasn't water, it was memory, old, sticky, flavored like the things we never meant to say. One girl clutched her chest and whispered, "I can hear what I'll regret tomorrow." Another man laughed and then sobbed, because he recognized the word as the thing he almost said to his dying father but never could. And now the spiral said it for him, perfectly, too perfectly. The drains began to breathe. You could hear them drawing in what was left. Names, regrets, moments, one by one. Sucked down the way a sink swallows a final dish. Even the buildings responded. Bricks wept. Glass curled. Concrete forgot its weight. The town collapsed inward, but softly. Like a body curling to sleep. Like a throat closing around a kiss. And then came the final speaker. Not the voice in the drain. Not the walkers. Not the spiral itself. You. Because the word entered you. Sat behind your teeth. Waited. Just long enough for you to feel familiar. Just long enough for your tongue to want to say it. People turned to each other, tears in their eyes, and said, "I think I know it now." One by one they whispered it. Not loud. Not clear. Just enough. Just enough. And when they did, their eyes emptied. Their mouths curled, and they became openings, not people. Just mouths through which the drain could keep speaking. The town is gone now, but not gone. Folded, curled, filed away behind the word. Stored in the echo that comes after someone says your name just slightly wrong. You'll feel it too, one night. Soon. Your faucet will drip in rhythm with your breath. Your mirror will fog before you exhale. Your bones will hum in a chord you've never learned, and you'll hear the word, not aloud, in the soft part of your skull, and you'll think, "Oh, that's what I've been waiting to say." Don't. Because once you say it, you won't be yourself anymore. You'll be an echo, a mouth, a drain, and the word will move on, looking for its next vessel, its next town, its next you. Because the last word wasn't an ending. It was a mouth beginning to open again. They always assumed the word would be the last thing, the end, the drain, the silence. But then someone answered, and that was worse. Not everyone heard it, just one girl. She had no name left, no family, no mouth. But she remembered the shape of speaking, the feel of breath in a spiral. So she responded. She said, "I hear you." And the world replied. It didn't come as sound. It came as reversal. The echo bounced not backward but inward. It spiraled into itself. And the spiral that once opened the sky, it closed, turned inside out, became a hole not in space, but in understanding. Time buckled. Clocks bent into curves. The sun swelled in the sky like a blister, then vanished. And in its place, a drain spun above the clouds, not sucking, speaking. It said her name, the first version, the wet one, the original one. And then it said everyone else's, all of us, all at once. And just like that, we remembered. We remembered Elmbrook, the town we were never meant to recall, the spiral that shaped us, the taste of forgetting, the warmth of water that never dries. We remembered being vessels, being recipes, being mouths in waiting, and worst of all, we remembered answering back, not in words, in choices, in silence, in allowing the spiral to curl its way deeper. The word wasn't a signal, it was a question, and the echo was our answer. Yes! Yes! You may enter! Yes, we remember. Yes, we want more. And now it knows we're listening. Worse, it knows we're willing. Elmbrook isn't a location. It never was. Elmbrook is a door, a recipe, a ritual. And now it lives in every drain, every silence, every dream where your teeth fall out and the mirror fogs before you breathe. We are all Elmbrook now, and the spiral is still spinning. The word is still waiting, the mouths are still learning, the drain is still open. So here's the truth. If you ever feel your faucet breathing, if you ever see your reflection mouth a word you don't know, if a loved one says something that almost sounds like them, but isn't quite, don't ask, don't remember, don't answer, because you've already spoken once, and it heard you. This wasn't a story. This was a call. And you've been listening the whole time. Now try to forget.